government, which states that council should return to face-to-face meetings on the 26th of March 2021 onwards. From this meeting until the 31st of December 2021, councillors can attend the meeting via video conference under certain circumstances and once resolved by council. This option will remain available to councillors whilst the Office of Local Government consults with councils regarding a permanent amendment to the Model Code of Meeting Practice to allow for councillors to attend via video conference due to various reasons. The council meeting is being open to remind all in attendance today the council meeting is being live streamed via YouTube and recorded and published online via council website. To those present in the meeting today, by participating in this public meeting, you are consenting to your image, voice and comments being recorded and published. The Mayor and or the Acting General Manager have the authority to pause the live stream if comments or debate are considered defamatory or otherwise inappropriate for publishing. Participants are advised that they may be subject to legal action if they engage in unlawful behaviour or commentary. Councillors, requests from councillor to attend via video conference. Councillor Nolan has provided a reason. Away from town and rest connecting flights are unavailable. Do I have a motion to allow Councillor Nolan to attend? Moved by Councillor Adams, seconder. Councillor Brown. Is there any debate? No debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour. Councillor Cool, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, Councillor Elgate, Councillor Page, Councillor Adams, Mayor Shirley. Against. Councillor Kennedy. Declare the motion carried. We can allow Councillor Nolan to enter. I have a second request received from Councillor Gallagher to attend the council meeting via audio visual link. Councillor Gallagher has provided a reason. Due to my employment, I'll be working in Dubbo in the state of New South Wales and will be unable to attend the meeting in person. Do I have a move to accept that? Moved by Councillor Page, seconded by Councillor Cool. I'll put the motion. All those in favour. Councillor Cool, Councillor Brown, Councillor Outwood, Councillor Page, Councillor Adams and Mayor Shirley. Thank you all for that. The motion is carried. Against is Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Kennedy. We'll just allow them to join us.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My vote button doesn't seem to exist, so if you'll accept the raise of the hand from here on in, I'd appreciate
that. Thank you, Councillor. So welcome to the meeting, Councillor Nolan and Gallagher. The minutes will reflect that you are attending via audio visual link. As there are only the two of you attending, I'm thinking that I should be looking. The only two of you attending the meeting remotely, I suggest that we leave your microphones open in the Zoom meeting, and this way you can unmute yourself when you wish to speak for or against a motion, or if you have a point of order or an amendment. And if you're voting, if you raise your hands like your fellow councillors, that will be accepted. And in terms of the order of business, to make it easier, for councillors accessing the electronic documents on the hub tonight, the supplementary business paper number 1, containing 3 open reports, will be considered at the conclusion of the open reports contained in the original business paper, and all council goes into confidential session. That will save the councillors having to switch to and from their business papers. Can I ask Councillor Adams to say a prayer?
Almighty God, we ask you to invite your blessing upon this council. Direct and prosper our deliberations to the advancement and true welfare of the people of the council area, our state and Australia. Amen.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Councillor Gallagher, can you do the acknowledgement of country?
Yes, I acknowledge the traditional owners of my land from which we live, and respect those elders past, present, and emerging.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. Can I move to item 5, the minutes for confirmation? I have a motion moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Brown. Is there any objections? No objections. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? That's unanimous vote, councillors. Thank you. I'll move to disclosures of interest. We have received one disclosure of interest. Councillor Clark, you have a disclosure of interest. And what is your reason?
My reason is that I am a neighbour.
Okay, and what's your action?
My action is to leave the
Councillor, we now move to item 7, Mural minute, for which there is none. We now move to notices of motion. Item 1, motion of which notice has been given, number 10/21, dated March 2nd, 2021, replacement of dead street trees, page 23. Councillor Kennedy.
I'll vote the motion, actually.
Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Gage. Will speak to your motion.
Yes, thank you. I'm sure council have read there is a tree policy that has been developed. It goes some of the way, but it doesn't satisfy the immediate action that council needs to be taking. Reality is that there are many dead trees. People have noticed them. It looks untidy when tourists come into the town. It looks untidy for the people that live here. Tilden Road is a classic example. As a council, policies are good, they work, but the reality is a lot of these policies result in inaction a lot of the time. Councillors need to start not only developing the policies, but ensuring that the policies end up creating the city we want. The city we want, I'm sure, is the same city that most of the people want. And that is a tidy town that we can be proud of. It's a town where we don't have dead trees, we don't have weeds on footpaths, we don't have what I would consider a town that's looking a little run down. We have a new general manager now, and I hope that this results in a way forward. We'll have a new council in September. Who that council will be made, how that council will be made up of is yet to be seen. But we still have 4 or 5 months left as the current council make sure that we deliver to the community in a way that the community expects. And that means removing dead trees and replacing them with a tree that is suitable to Broken Hill community. One tree that is used in many councils in Victoria and South Australia is the ornamental pear. It grows to 3 or 4 metres in height. You can get different varieties. Some varieties are only 1 metre wide, which means it won't affect power lines, which will reduce dramatically the maintenance cost that council has when trees invade power lines. They also have a non-invasive root system, which means we won't be dealing with the destruction of pavers and cement, concrete, gutters, etc. This is a real opportunity for the Broken Hill City Council to start moving in the right direction so that when the community go to vote in September and they do vote for a new council, that council is well on the way to re-establishing what I believe Broken Hill was a beautiful city that deserved to win Tidy Town awards. Suddenly a city that wins Tidy Town awards, people say how.
Thank you, Councillor. No further debate? Councillor Clark.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I think I'll make rather an obvious amendment here. We've got a motion about the tree management plan to be adopted later in the meeting. So I would move that we move the first point that the motion be received.
Councillor Clark, do you have a seconder for Councillor Brown? Councillor Clark, do you want to speak to your motion?
Madam Mayor, I think it's quite obvious. We're going to be discussing the removal of dead trees, the planting of trees, and the process that's involved in this at great length, I would think, very shortly. So perhaps we can just save our discussion for then.
Thank you, councillors. Speakers against the amendment?
I'll speak against the amendment.
Councillor Hawkins?
I know there's a further report, but Councillor Kennedy's notice of motion is about some immediate action. And it's immediate action about the dead trees. It's not about the whole ramification, the whole gamut of trees. It's about replacing the dead trees. And we have hundreds of them. Every approach to town, in every approach to town, the only thing worse than the dead trees coming into town are those bloody signs. But the dead trees are a real problem. Go to the airport. The first thing that visitors to the town from the airport see is a complete row of dead trees. Sylvan Road's been mentioned. It's a classic. How long are we going to wait? How long are we going to wait to really look at a problem and address it and do something about it? This business of looking at policies and having a report that's going to resolve everything, it'll resolve nothing immediately. This is a report that wants action now. This is a report that wants to improve the city and improve it now to start doing work. And from my experience in council, the Labor Party either defer or they have amendments. They always have amendments prepared. There's no doubt about that. Every time Councillor Kennedy moves a motion, notice a motion, there are amendments galore from that side of the room. And that's fine, because that's the way the council wanted. But we're not addressing this problem, and this problem is one, it's not going to go away. If you keep ignoring the problem forever and ever, which you may well do. I know the report talks about the report later in the meeting talks about dead trees. It doesn't talk about doing anything immediately. And there's a need to do something now, not sometime in the future, not refer back to some report that gets 28 days public display and all the rest of it. We need some action now.
Thank you, councillor. Any further speakers for the amendment? Councillor Brown?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of things I noted on the actual wording of the notice of motion. It is calling for a policy in response to the council, but it's not calling for action. It's calling for yet another policy, which is cuts right across the much more the comprehensive policy that voting on short-term tree management policy. It also one of the other items that I do have concerns about is the suggestion that this process will be outsourced to a contractor. It's my understanding that this would put council in perhaps a risky situation with regard to unacceptable risk anyway, for allowing contractors to both remove the dead trees and to use them for biofuel for purpose. So that, I think, is a very unwise decision. The other comment I'd make is that Councillor Kennedy seems to be suggesting a specific species of tree, and yet elsewhere he is recommending that this be left to a community committee or for the community to suggest the tree. Again, in the tree management policy that we'll consider later, there is a fairly extensive list of suitable trees which are actually drawn up by experts. It does concern me that people, when people consider that they know better than experts and can just ignore the advice of people that council, the consultants, the people that council employs to give them expert advice.
Thank you, councillor. Speakers against the amendment? Councillor Page?
I think this is a safety issue that should be dealt with straight away. If I was sure that when we do talk about it later in the meeting that we will be fast tracking the removal of those trees, I've said on many occasions it is a safety issue. And the fact that we know it's a safety issue, and if we don't do what's being proposed tonight in this motion, we could find ourselves liable for not fixing the problem. So I'd like to see this dealt with tonight. They have to be fast tracked, whether you deal with it in this motion or later in the meeting, providing it's dealt with fast track it later in the meeting. But it's got to be done, like we've heard tonight from this side of the room. They realise that it has to be done and it should be done as soon as possible.
Thank you, councillor Page. Speakers for the amendment, councillor Adams?
I have a suggestion, Mayor, that that's exactly what we should do. Perhaps Councillor Page will be ready to put James as a addendum with the tree policy when it comes up, that we do act very, very quickly.
Thank you, councillor. Okay, thank you for that. If there's no further debate.
Yes, I speak against the amendment.
Councillor Kennedy?
The amendment is as usual, and we go back to the policy. Number 3 says that in my motion, prepare an outline the cost of removal of dead trees and replace them with a species of tree chosen by council in consultation with the community. That means it happens there and then, not after Councillor Brown says that it's the same as a report. Councillor Brown also, I don't know what sort of contractors Councillor Brown gets when she gets people, but I'm sure council management would make sure the people that they got quotes from to remove council trees would be surely qualified to remove council trees. Essential Energy does it at the moment. That's who removes our trees. That suggests that it would be dangerous for council to employ contractors. Council calls for quotes all the time to get people to do jobs. I don't know how a councillor that's been on the council for 30 plus years does not understand that it is not a risk for council to get quotes from people to do work for council. Councillor Brown mentioned experts.
Madam Mayor,
Councillor Brown?
I suggested no such thing. I suggested no such thing. My comment was in relation to the safety of allowing contractors to use the dead trees for firewood and sell it for firewood.
Right. Can I continue? Well, that actually happens now, Madam Mayor. At the dump, that's always been the process.
Councillor Kennedy, address your debate.
Young Brooklyn,
Yes.
Councillor Brown.
Councillor Brown was right. She did not say not to do a contract.
She said the risks associated with
To
having.
council, it wasn't about the contract.
Well, can we get the meeting brought back? Because I disagree with that.
Yes, but I'm the mayor and I'm the chair.
Well, you also don't decide what is honest and what is right. The thing is, it was said, the councillor said about quotes and getting people to remove trees, and the risk to council was what was said.
The risk to council, not about the contractors.
From the contractors, that's exactly what
progress.
Councillor Brown said, from the contractors. And as far as firewood, I'm going on with my debate. As far as firewood goes, Australian vermiculture, also at the 15 minutes in between, Australian vermiculture collected firewood for years and sold it. Councillor Brown has been a councillor for 30 years, doesn't understand the processes of council. That is not an attack of the council. Councillor,
Address the debate.
the debate is,
You're
Councillor Brown called a point of order
Yes,
about
they're talking about
collecting
councillor,
firewood.
councillor.
Australian burn culture.
It's not debate. Well, thank you, because when the mayor speaks, you're supposed to stop. So can I have stopped the clock for you, councillor? But I am involved in the debate because you are trying to personally attack councillor Brown. Talk to the debate, to your motion and respond to it.
It's quite interesting that it's personal when I mention Councillor Brown, but it is not personal when Councillor Brown talks about Councillor Kennedy in his motion and says that he's going to meet with the community, but then he mentions a tree himself. I'm not only just a councillor, but I'm also a member of the community. And I can suggest a tree that may be of value. Councillor Brown may not like that tree or may think that the experts, as Councillor Brown said, know a lot more than what I do. Councillor Brown might not understand. Most people can actually do a bit of research themselves these days. Ring other councils, ask what trees they're using, as I do. You know, they have experts. It's not just Broken Hill Council that pays millions of dollars in consultation fees to experts that are sitting up in that room. We have millions of dollars in so-called experts that council has paid to get advice on what we should be doing in this community instead of councillors making the decision. Some of the councillors in this room listen to the real experts, and the real experts are the community that we represent. Go out to the community, ask them what they think. Don't get a designer from Melbourne to do your gateway signs because they're experts. We need to listen to them. How about, as a community, as councillors, councillors should listen, take notice of the Act. We are there to represent the views of the ratepayers of this city. And the ratepayers of this city are the people that the experts I listen to. And what they are saying is that the dead trees are dangerous, the dead trees are unsightly, the dead trees need to be removed, and contractors or council can do that. The reason at this stage council can probably not remove dead trees is because council doesn't even have enough employees to fix roads or do the work they're meant to do. I don't know how council got to this situation. Probably the council before this one probably got rid of too many people, I would dare say, and didn't
Point of order, Madam Mayor, that has got nothing to do with the motion we are addressing at the moment. Can we get on with the motion, please?
I've got 5 minutes to speak and I have interrupted continuously from the Labor caucus.
Councillor, this is referring to people's political parties. It's something very new for you.
Are these the Labor councillors?
Progress.
Elected as Labor councillors, so I can call them Labor councillors. The others are independent. It'd be wrong of me to call Dave Gallagher a national councillor because he's elected as a independent.
Councillor, you're going to continue because.
Well, it's very difficult when I'm interrupted by what aren't points of order. The mayor should actually rule the councillor out and say, if you're going to call a point of order, then have a point of order, not a disruption.
Councillor, are you getting debate or not? Let's continue.
Well, it's very difficult when someone else is a point of order called, they can't speak anymore because they're disrupted and they lose their train of thought. And that's the aim of it. It's to try and have a council lose their train of thought. The other thing that was mentioned was it'll give the opportunity, this was Councillor Clark, to discuss in the report what's going on. I don't think that the discussion is going to include that council considers quotes for the removal of dead trees. I don't think that's going to happen when we're talking about the tree removable policy. I don't think that it's going to
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Continue.
Discussion. That's what we'll be getting. But there's no way that Councillor Clark's amendment is going to address this issue. Councillor Clark and the Labor caucus are either against it or for it. This is another attempt to move it somewhere else so they are actually voting against it, but they're not seen to be voting against it. And that's the reality.
Thank you, Councillor. If there's no further debate, I'll put Councillor Clark's amendment All those in favour? I'll go to the screen first. Councillor Nolan, Councillor McCool, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, Councillor Page, Councillor Adams, Mayor Shirley. Against? Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Allgate and Councillor Gallagher. Thank you, councillors. The amendment now becomes the motion. I'm sure there's no further debate, but Councillor Kennedy, would you like your right to reply?
Just brief, Madam Mayor. Councillors need to understand that we're elected by the community. The community are watching, and what they see when a decision like this is made is that councillors aren't interested in fixing dead trees.
Thank you, councillor. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, I'll go to those online first. All those in favour of the motion. Councillor Norman, Councillor Cool, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, Councillor Page, Councillor Adams, Mayor Shirley. Against? Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Allgate, Councillor Gallagher. The motion is passed. Thank you, councillors. We'll move now to item number 2, motion which has been given dated 11/21 dated April 16, 2021, dog and cat control in Broken Hill, page 26. Councillor Cool, are you moving that way?
Move that way, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. You have a seconder? You have a seconder, Councillor Clark. Councillor Cool, would you speak to your motion, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I won't go through the points that the council's had that in front of me. This is a situation which has been part of our community for a long time, with roaming dogs, dog attacks, nuisance dogs, and cats to a lesser extent. We've had a horrific story from a resident, and there are probably other terrible stories that have happened before. This is particularly horrific. We need to, as a council, to do something. I think in the past, maybe council has been remiss and put things in a too hard basket. But now we need to act, and I'm putting forward that we investigate what options are available to this council to address this issue. And the points are in there. It will require the community involvement, and that's why I included there the formation of a committee. We need to get the community's input, their feedback, their contribution to possible solutions that we can put forward, and hopefully we can make some real progress on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Speakers against?
I'd like to make a comment, Madam Mayor.
Yes, councillor Page.
Council already has a detailed policy on dog control and all these issues. So before we do anything, we should go back and have a look at what the current policy is. It's been in place for a long time. So I don't have a problem with Mr. McCool's motion, but I think we need to have a look at what we already have there.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I can comment, I would expect that that will be part of the process very much
Yeah,
so.
you'll be included in the process.
I'll
Speakers
say
against?
Yeah.
Councillor Kennedy.
There's some points in the motion I agree with, there's other points I don't agree with. It's very sad when dogs or cats are viciously attacked, or by the same token hit by cars, etc. They're part of people's family. They love them. My big problem is when people start making so-called policy on the run about reducing dog numbers, opportunity to limit the number of dogs and cats held on an individual property. Many people would know many people that have a number of dogs or cats, look after them greatly. The people we need to be looking at are the people that are irresponsible with their pets, not the people that are responsible. This undoubtedly, this motion will, this proposed notice of motion would have scared many people, particularly older people that have maybe 3 dogs, 4 dogs, lovely little dogs. Most people have a lot of little dogs. Some people have big hunting dogs and so on, dogs that get out of their yards and cause the damage to other people's loved pets. problem with this motion is, as I see it, is that it's going to cause a lot of headache for responsible pet owners, as well as maybe people that aren't responsible, but we all know that the people that aren't responsible get away with a lot more than the people that are responsible. We heard tonight about emails about what maybe an irresponsible pet owner get away with things for a long, long time. When council does these sort of things, they need to understand the ramifications of what they're talking about, as opposed to just broadly doing everything. And I will go to say that the letter from Miss Pitt was well written. It had many good points in it. And some of those are the points that council should be thinking about adopting and looking at. Not automatic look at investigating the opportunities to limit the number of dogs and cats held at any individual property.
Thank you, councillor. Speakers for the motion, councillor Adams.
Yes, Madam Mayor, this has been a problem for a very long time, and to say that we all know within in our own areas, people complaining about wandering dogs and dogs attacking other dogs, and people being actually afraid to walk down the street. This policy, or this investigation, and hopefully a policy to come from it, is not about upsetting or making life difficult for responsible owners. They really haven't anything to be afraid of this if we can get a policy through. I personally thought we did have a policy of 2 dogs per household. I guess I'm wrong. So, you know, I think we are looking at the people that have a lot of dogs that are not responsible for them. You can't have a rule and say, well, you know, one half of that community will have that rule because they are responsible, and this mob would have a different rule because they are irresponsible dog owners or cat owners or whatever. We have to have a policy in place that everyone can look at and have their own opinions. But yes, we're not talking about little old ladies being frightened because they're going to lose 3 dogs. Even if something comes in there, we're not going to go out there and say, well, you have 5 dogs, remove 3. I know Councillor Kennedy was mumbling over there, I can't hear what you're saying, but I think you said we can. But that is not what this is intended. And I think we have to look at this very carefully and I agree, get moving very quickly on it, because we do not want to see these things in our community and have people's hearts broken and pets being destroyed.
What's your amendment, councillor?
My amendment is that the notice of motion be received, that at number 2, it be number 3 be number 2, that council establish a local companion animal management committee, including representatives groups such as the RSPCA, private veterinarian practice, police, etc. And at number 3, the council employ a full-time dog catcher.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Moved by councillor Kennedy, second by councillor Allgate. Councillor McCool, do you want to
Well,
include this
actually, I
in the
didn't speak
motion?
to my amendment, Madam Mayor.
I just see if he wants to include in the motion.
No, I don't want it. I don't want the rest of it, so.
Oh, okay. So we'll leave that. Do you want to speak to your amendment, councillor?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. It's quite pleasing to hear councillors acknowledge the fact that there is dogs roaming, there is dogs killing other dogs, and any amount of reports, any amount of policies have no effect whatsoever unless we have a good full-time dog catcher. The reason a lot of this didn't happen is we had a very good dog catcher in the name of Binger Watson, who made sure that these dogs were controlled, these dogs were in a place where they were safe, and if they weren't safe, we went around there and made sure that there were ramifications, and a lot of the time, those people lost those dogs. What's happened since then is we have no full-time dog catcher. We have rangers who, most of the time, are out there finding John Wren in front of the cinema, or at the school or parked across the road from the ANZ Bank, watching people pull up and getting fines. Council's not about issuing fines to people or making people pay, it's about making a livable city. And a livable city means we have a dog catcher that takes care of the people that are irresponsible, catches dogs almost immediately as they are roaming the streets. If they're registered, people will come and get those dogs. They can put them back safely away. Not only will it save dogs from being attacked and cats from being attacked, it will also stop, in a lot of cases, dogs from being hit by cars or being lost or being hurt in any other manner. Dog catchers are important. Council, I assume it was probably the last council in the restructure, they decided that dog catchers were not important. It's quite obvious that dog catchers are important. If anyone goes on the Facebook site, Lost Animals, Broken Hill Lost Animals to both sites, you'll see regularly people talk about there is no dog catcher. This is an opportunity if councillors accept the amendment to actually make a change as opposed to another policy which really has no effect. A dog catcher will have an immediate effect. Forming the group that our speaker letter, Ms. Pitt, put down is very important because the community and that group on Facebook have a lot of good ideas on how to better manage companion animals within the city. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Adams, you're speaking against the amendment.
No, I'm sort of asked a question before, mate. There's a clarification possibly through the general manager. Do we have any idea of how many hours of spent with the rangers involved with the dog and cat problem?
Mr. General Manager.
Thanks, Madam Chair. At this point in time, it would be about 85% on dog catching services, 15% on parking compliance matters.
Thank you. There's no speakers.
Madam Mayor, can I ask a question?
What's the question, Councillor Page?
Through you to the general manager, how many rangers do we have? And how many of them are multi-skilled in regard to dog catching and other issues?
Thank you, Councillor Page. Mr. General Manager.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. We have two FTEs for range of services. We currently only have one. We're advertising for a second one at the moment. We can't fill that position. And they are multi-skilled across the facets of the job description. So that's compliance work, dog catching, cat matters, and parking control as well.
Mr. General Manager, when there is a vacancy, do we have a contract ranger come and work in Broken Hill? What's the situation?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we currently have contract ranger services that provide the second backup in full-time capacity.
Thank you. Speakers against the amendment, Councillor?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I will speak against this amendment, mainly because it has cut out a number of important points that we should be including in this motion. I do think we'd love to have more dog catchers. We'd love to have more staff. We'd like to have a lot more employees. But there is a point. The dog catcher can't be everywhere. It wouldn't matter if we had 10 dog catchers. They're not going to be able to prevent people being attacked. You can't be with every person who is attacked or every animal that is attacked. It's about prevention. We'd love to have all of our dog and cat owners in Broken Hill as responsible pet owners. That would be wonderful. And the majority of them are. The majority of dog owners have got their dogs housed properly. They've got them in yards with locked gates, high fences, that kind of thing. And we would like to see everybody like that. Unfortunately, we do have roaming dogs. Now, other councils also have similar problems to Broken Hill. We are not the only council with roaming dogs and people being attacked by dogs. We can see that other councils have developed policies which include, I see point 2 here in the motion, about opportunities, investigative opportunities to limit the number of cats and dogs. As pointed out by another councillor, this does not mean that council will make an onslaught onto the houses of Broken Hill, demand an inspection of the number of dogs and cats, and haul them off if you've got more than the required number. That's not going to happen. We do want to see that we have some input from the community on this matter, and that is also something that Councillor LaCure has mentioned in his notice of motion. I think that we should accept all of these points and hope that we can develop a policy out of this.
Thank you, councillors. Any speakers for the amendment? Councillor Orgate.
As far as I'm concerned, there is no doubt in my mind, no doubt whatsoever in my mind, that when we had a regular full-time dog catcher who was available on call on his mobile phone 24 hours a day, there were less roaming dogs in the city than there are now.
Thank you, councillor. If there's no further debate, I'll put councillor Brown, you want to speak?
Very briefly, Madam Mayor, I just wanted to make a point that I don't believe that the existence of a ranger would have made any difference in the very serious event that was addressed in the initial part of this meeting, because those dogs weren't roaming. Dangerous dogs kept inside, as I understand it.
Thank you, councillor.
Just a question, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, who's speaking?
Tom.
Councillor Kennedy.
I'm pretty sure that Ms. Pitt said that she complained about the dogs in the past. Part of the role of the dog catcher was actually to regularly investigate, and regularly look at how secure yards were and that sort of stuff. So even though the dogs were not roaming, if a dog catcher who has the experience, our previous dog catcher was a dog catcher for 20 years, they know which dogs could be dangerous, which dogs aren't dangerous, and so on and so on. Yes, maybe it wouldn't have made any sort of difference, but we don't know that. So my question to you is, we can never know whether having a dog catcher would have made a difference or not. Is that right?
I'll take it on notice. Thank you, councillor. So I'll put councillor Kennedy's amendment. All in favour of councillor Kennedy's amendment, I'll go to the screen first. Councillor Nolan, councillor Gallagher. So it's councillor Kennedy and councillor Orgate against. Councillor McCool, councillor Brown, councillor Clark, councillor Page, councillor Adams, councillor Gallagher and councillor Nolan. Mayor Turley. The amendment is lost. We'll move to the motion. Councillor, we've had full debate. Councillor McCool, would you like a right of reply?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is definitely not policy on the wrong. This is a thought out approach to the council to look at all our options, to include the community and all those responsible dog owners, all those other people who are involved in this matter, to come back to us with information, with their thoughts, and then so that we can have a very detailed but very considered approach and decisions made. It's not policy on the run. We talk about, let's just put on a dog catcher. Let's put on 10 dog catchers. The whole point being is that we need to know if legislation will help with this problem. We need to have powers that can assist a dog catcher. And I'm pretty sure if this committee that forms and this feedback process from the committee comes back and says we need more dog catchers, then this council will probably consider those dog catchers. But we need to give them the legislative power, if that's what comes out of this process, so that they are empowered and have more ability to curtail this problem and act.
Thank you, I'll put the motion. Can we ask to put the motion first, councillor? All those in favour? Councillors, McCool, councillor Brown, councillor Clark, councillor Page, councillor Allgate, sorry, councillor Adams, Mayor Turley, councillor Gallagher and councillor Nolan against. Councillor Kennedy, councillor Allgate declared the motion carried. Thank you for your patience. We'll take your questions for, what's your question, councillor?
My question is, I'm just wondering, item 5, council investigate and advocate for changes to the Animals Act to give greater powers to local government and restrict the dangerous management blah, blah, blah. Can the mover explain to me what additional powers? The current Companion Animals Act is quite comprehensive.
We'll take that on notice. Take that on notice. The debate has, you had opportunity in the debate before the right of reply, councillor.
Councillor McCall has moved it. He obviously understands. Maybe he can tell us.
Yes, and councillor, before the right of reply, you know that you're breaching the process. Before the right of reply, you should have asked that. Thank you, councillor.
You should permit me to ask the question during the discussion before.
You asked after the right of reply, councillor, and you know the process and you know governance. So I know what you're doing. So thank you for that. Good try. The motion is carried. Thank you, everyone. Item 3, motions of which notice has been given. Number 12/21, date April 16th, page 31, development of a tree for removal policy. Councillor Kennedy.
I'll move it.
Second.
I'll certainly second it.
Yes, speak.
Councillor Kennedy, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move this motion because of a request from Tex Tucker, and I'm sure it's not the only business and not the only community member that has trouble with trees. What actually has happened in this situation is that trees are invaded the plumbing works of the business, which will cost many thousands of dollars to repair. Plumbers have said that there is no point in repairing that plumbing work until the trees out the front are removed. The owner of Tex Tucker has said that she is willing to replace the trees with a different type of tree and maintain those trees to ensure that they get to adulthood. This is an opportunity for council to work with community. What was mentioned not that long ago, I think it was the last meeting, was that council may at some stage have to introduce a special rate to ensure that council does deliver on all its proposals. The only way that council is going to be able to ever implement a special rate is if the council works with people such as Taylor Cup of Tex Tucker. Once council and the community understand that council are there to help the community rather than hamper, then I'm sure we'll have no trouble getting the community on side with many projects that will deliver to the community. As can be seen in the notice of motion, Ms. Cup actually did contact 3 local plumbers who said that there was no point in changing the plumbing or doing the plumbing unless the trees were removed. There was a plumber engaged by council from Mildura, and I questioned why a out-of-town plumber would be used. The plumber was wrong, and the tree roots did come back almost immediately. So I think council should pass this and do the right thing, particularly after council, by doing the Gibson Street Road, actually did result in that business being closed for a few months and had to move. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any speakers against? No speakers against? Oh, councillor.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I will make an amendment here. I'd like to just point out that.
What's your amendment, councillor?
My amendment is that we will move that the motion be received. And I do that for this. Council has already prepared a report talking about how they have engaged with the householder. They have engaged an independent plumber. They have printed the advice that's in the
Councillor, I
papers.
just need to get a seconder for your amendment, seconded by Councillor Brown. Sorry for interrupting, Councillor. Please continue.
All these interruptions, Madam Mayor. Yes, and the independent plumber has said that if the pipes are not relined, as indeed he has advised, then the problem is just going to continue, because we know that those very old earthenware pipes develop cracks and they leak, and this of course will attract tree roots from any trees nearby, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's that particular tree, it could be any tree. Removing the tree in that case wouldn't make any difference. It's a very healthy tree too. We have to be very concerned about this, because we've got councillors in this room who do not want healthy trees cut down, who are objecting to things like that. I do note also that Peter Black, when he was mayor, had a policy against the removal of trees by residents. I believe that might still be in force. It's very clear from the report in these papers that in fact it comes down to work by Essential Energy, and the timeline is Essential Energy does the work outside the householder's premises. They have to do the work first, then the householder has to have the pipes relined or replaced if indeed she is going to get rid of this problem altogether. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Speaker against Councillor Page.
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to ask a question. I know there's a detailed report coming on later in the meeting. Is that classified as confidential, that report?
No,
It's not. Okay, I just wanted to know.
No, it's a policy.
This will be dealt with later on.
Yes, it will. Yes.
My comment, Madam Chair.
Councillor Applegate.
Just in response to the situation with Broken Hill City Council, particularly going back 20 years ago, this council spent probably hundreds of thousands of dollars trenching in front of people's properties, particularly in Lane Street, in Ryan Street, and lots of other streets as well. Trenching 4 or 5 feet down to cut off the river gum and eucalypt roots that were invading private properties. But the theory then was that if you put the trench down about 4 to 5 foot, and then put a plastic barrier down and then refilled, the roots wouldn't go back in. Hundreds of thousands of dollars were expended to try and eradicate the problem, for the very reason the council's insurance broker at the time, Jardines, gave the council an ultimatum: either we do work that will prevent this particular invasion of roots, or the need for council's excesses will increase dramatically. And the council had no alternative but to do the work. So to say the council doesn't do any work to alleviate root problems and that on it is wrong. We've done a lot. The council in earlier days has done a lot of work. In fact, we even went to the degree of removing all the apple pines in Broken Hill. Main Street was full of apple pines. Anybody that lived there long enough will know that. There are now none in Broken Hill, for the very reason that they are unstable. Their roots used to penetrate into the properties, and in windstorms and whatever, they just fell over. But these trees, these river gums and eucalypts and that, they are invasive in terms of their roots, And really, speaking, what Councillor Clark, I suppose, is one way of alluding to, that every property over about 40 years old that has earthenware sewage pipes will have to renew their sewage pipes. That's really what she's saying, and people won't like that too much.
Thank you, councillor.
I
Any
have a
speakers for?
I have a question, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Kennedy?
It probably needs to be answered by the General Manager, but maybe you can answer it. Councillor Clark's amendment is that the motion of which notice has been received, dated April 16th. What impact does that have on a received, and what does it mean if you're just receiving? Is it no action? Is it action? The councillor spoke against the motion, but then received the motion. Is that received in the positive? Is it received in the negative? Because I just don't understand what an amendment that says that the motion which notice has been received.
My understanding is that the motion is received and there is no, and that is it, there is no recommendations underneath. I'll refer it to the General Manager.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. That's correct. The recommended, well, the motion will be received as is, and for any records, will be the subtext in the report. But as for recommendations going out to the community, we just see that the motion's received.
Right, it's just that when speaking about that motion, there was a lot of speaking against what was in the context of it, but surely if a motion is just to be received, it is just that.
Thank you.
Anyway, I'll speak against the amendment, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy.
Yes, thank you. I find it very strange, in fact, that Councillor Clark, in her amendment and then following the address, stated that a plumber from Mildura knows more than the 3 local plumbers who work with Broken Hill community all the time. This plumber comes to town and said if it's not relined, so on and so on. This is a bloke from Mildura that doesn't have the expertise of the local knowledge at least. He may have the same licence, may have the same whatever. People who live in Broken Hill and work in a particular area in Broken Hill know more about that area than any plumber that can come from, or any person that can come from somewhere else. The reality is, and the plumbers used were, yes, a little bit off-putting. The plumbers that are used are local plumbers that I would say are very, very, in fact, some of our best plumbers in town. And to say that they wouldn't know what they're talking about, or allude that someone from Mildura would know a lot more than what our local plumbers would know, is strange to me. It's also strange when we talk about not wanting to remove trees, gum trees, and we have councillors that don't want to remove. I don't like removing trees at all. If any tree is removed, it should be replaced immediately with another thing. But the councillors in this room that have voted to remove trees before are in fact some of the councillors in this room when they voted to remove trees at the back of the admin building or at the civic centre. That's strange, a healthy tree removed from the civic centre. Wow, that's because it was interfering in council's property as opposed to a silly ratepayer coming to us thinking that she should be able to come to us and say, help me out. This is costing me thousands of dollars. We don't even want to consider this, but when it comes to our civic centre or our back of our admin building, those hands go up pretty quick. I think if you have a look at that time, I argued, could there be anything else done to those trees? But I lost that vote, and I'm happy to say I lost that vote. So yes, I do like to keep trees, and I attempt to keep trees as much as I can. Some of the other councillors were quick to put their hand up to say damage at the civic centre or damage to our admin building. It's just a shame from my point of view, and I would say probably from the point of view of many in the community, the same consideration wasn't given when a business comes to us asking for help.
Thank you. Is there any further speakers?
Madam Mayor, could I ask a question?
Councillor Cool, yes, what's your question?
I just want to ask you a question. This suggests that the local plumbers don't reline pipes or they don't know how to reline pipes. So I'm just wondering if anyone
I
can
think
answer that
it's
question.
essential energy reliant pipes. I think there are essential energy pipes underneath. Mr. General Manager.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. The independent plumber that we had to engage, obviously, is council needs independent advice. Recommended by Essential Water, who they use, which is this firm, and they specialise in relining pipes, but they also have the camera equipment that was required to get to the diameter of pipe from the street into the property. So that was the recommendation, hence why they were used.
If I can ask another question through the chair.
Yes, Mr. Councillor Cool.
Was Ms. Cuff explain this process, this relining the pipes? Was there a conversation between her and Essential Energy?
Mr. General Manager.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I can't comment on conversations between Ms. Cuff and Essential Water. However, she has been explained this process that we're going through at the moment.
Can I ask a question, Madam Mayor?
Councillor Kennedy.
Firstly, I don't know if councillors know, you can actually buy those cameras now pretty cheap. So that's a question that councillors know, that those cameras are really quite easy. Now you get one for a few $100 if you want to do your own.
What's the question, Councillor?
I'm saying that councillors know that you can get that. So I don't think that's going to be an issue when it comes to it. But my other issue, my other point of order.
This may be, Councillor Kennedy asked a question to the councillors, and he's left it as a condescending comment rather than a question. I didn't know whether councillors are allowed to ask council questions across the chamber in a general term.
Thank you, Councillor. The question, Councillor, thank you, continue on.
Well, Councillor LaCour just made a statement that tried to make a derogatory statement against. Mayor Turley, can you be a little bit fair and let me finish my sentence before you make a ruling? Before we interrupt him to give a ruling in advance? The statement made by Councillor Cool is, I don't know if councillors can ask other councillors. Perhaps a quick look at the Act about questions, you'll find that councillors can ask councillors questions, and if it's general and that the council thought it was general, answer the question. Yes, I didn't know. No, I didn't know. That's fine. I'm quite happy that the council would answer the question, or any council will not answer it at all. Because under the Act, you don't have to answer. You can take it on notice. You can do whatever you like. But I asked the question. I asked it in good faith, not some condescending. The council can take it that way. But that is not how it's taken. The reality is all plumbers have camera work. They are cheap and effective now. You don't need someone from Mural to have a plumber with a camera. My point being, they are cheap. Do councillors realise how cheap they are? But anyway, my second question is about the lining of it. Did all councillors receive the email from Ms. Puff that stated quite clearly that the local advice to her is relining the pipes will not have an effect because until the trees are removed? That was in her email. There's been a question asked, has she done this? I'm asking, did all councillors receive that email and did they read it?
Madam Mayor, if there is the council dropping new information onto this, hang on, if I can finish, Councillor Kennedy. Maybe if there's new information coming on, maybe we need to defer this motion. So we can consider that information. If there's an email that was supposed to come to all the councillors, I didn't see it. I can't recall it. Maybe we need to consider that information before we consider this matter.
Did the mayor see the email?
I can't recall exactly what email we're talking about at the moment. I'd have to recheck. So, but Councillor Kennedy, you received the email.
It was posted there. It was all there. It come through council's
We'll take it on notice.
email thing.
We'll take it on notice. Thank you, Councillor. We'll continue back in the debate. So we have speakers against. Is there any speaker for? Councillor Brown.
I've forgotten
forgotten exactly where we're at in this debate. We're speaking for the amendment.
We're speaking for the amendment.
Right.
Councillor Clark's amendment.
Councillor Clark's amendment. Yes, I just wanted to make the point that, I mean, I personally am prepared to accept that the plumber from Jura, as recommended by Central Water, would know what he assumed. So he was talking about when he said that the problem is with the earthenware pipes, and thus the main problem is with Essential Energies need to probably upgrade those pipes. My other next thought is that even if this tree were to be removed, there's no guarantee if the pipes are at fault that that's going to solve any of the problem. We don't. I'm no expert on trees, but I do know that tree roots, particularly when it's dry, can travel vast distances. So as far as I'm aware, there's no absolute guarantee that this tree, and I know some species, you know, are more likely than others, but if it's dry, if trees are seeking water, it's my understanding that any tree will, you know, look for a gap in the pipe. So even if we were to do this, there's no guarantee that this would solve the problem anyway. And you know, I would hate to see this, you know, the same problem unless Essential Water, unless the pipe is relined or replaced or whatever happens. And it's likely that this same situation could be repeated, you know, down that section. I don't know whether it's a particularly bad section of Gypsum Street, but that is not necessarily the way to solve the problem anyway.
Thank you, councillors. There's no further debate. I'll put Councillor Clark's amendment. All those in favour? Councillor Cool, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, Councillor Adams, Mayor Shirley, Councillor Gallagher and Councillor Nolan. The amendment now becomes a motion. Councillor Kennedy, would you like to provide a reply as the original mover of the motion?
Yes, thank you. Again, I find it interesting that Councillor Brown accepts the plumber from Mildura, but in doing so says that the three plumbers from Broken Hill were wrong, when in fact the plumber from Mildura said cleaning the pipes would last 12 months before it would need to be done again. It lasted 1 month. The plumber from Mildura, the independent plumber, was wrong. To go on from that, as I said earlier, councillors were quick to replace trees when it affected council. They were very slow and almost, it's like who cares when it comes to a local business. The owner of the business has been told, who is planning to replace all the pipes, was told don't replace the pipes while the trees are there from the local plumbers. So again, the Councillor Brown makes the wrong assertion when she says that she perhaps not replacing them or relining them. She has been given advice by tree plumbers not to reline, not to replace unless the trees out the front have been replaced. That's her advice. She wants to replace them because it needs to be done. But her advice is not to do it until those trees are removed. She is not the only one in the neighbourhood. All the neighbours are going through the same thing. Councillors, perhaps instead of in their haste to vote against everything that I put up, would find out this, perhaps even give a call to the business owner and find out exactly what's going on. After all, as councillors, we're here to represent the community. I'm sure under all our busy schedules, we can at least make a phone call and know exactly what's going on before we come into the chamber.
Thank you, councillor. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Cool, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, Councillor Page, Councillor Adams, Councillor Gallagher, Councillor Nolan, Mayor Shirley against, Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Allgate. Declare the motion carried. Thank you, council. Move to item 4, motion of which notice has been given, number 13/21, dated April 16th, page 35, Broken Hill mural gateway signage, councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, I'll move it.
Seconder,
Second.
councillor Gate. Councillor Kennedy, you want to speak to the motion?
Yes, I want to speak to this. Yeah, it's early, read out a letter or a submission from Peter Nash at the last council meeting about council looking at replacing the gateway signage. My motion is virtually to form a working group that of locals that are interested to start with the replacement of one of the gateway signs. Councillors here in this room know that there was about 200 people at a public meeting with all voting against it as they put their hands up to show councillors that they were opposed to the gateway signage that is there. I have seen on Facebook many times people taking photos of the Silverton sign. People are proud to stand in front of the Silverton sign. I've actually never seen a photo of the gateway signage that has been placed on all the routes into the city. This is an opportunity for councillors to right what I considered was wrong by ignoring 200 people, but also ignoring hundreds of people, thousands of people in the community that had an opinion about the gateway signs. And people will say, or some of the councillors here tonight may say that there was only 200 people that in the community that came. 200 people out of a rate-paying base or a voting base of around 10,000, 11,000 adults is a considerable percentage, especially when it's 100% one way. When you get 100% out of 200 people saying they oppose it, you can be pretty safe to say that close to 100% in the community oppose it. Maybe 3 or 4% wrong, and that's what a sample of that size would say, that you may be 3 or 4% out, so probably 96% of people support, don't support those signs, and councillors voted against that anyway. Anyway, this is an opportunity to change what council voted for with just one sign, and perhaps that sign that is removed can be put on the line of load where I think it would look fantastic facing the sunset, and maybe people would actually take photos of that sign with the sunset behind it. I do hope that councillors support this and give the community an opportunity to be involved in rectifying what I believe council got wrong, and what I believe that the majority of the community believe council got wrong.
Thank you, councillor. Any speakers against the motion?
Madam Mayor, I'll move an amendment.
What's your amendment,
The
councillor?
motion be received.
That the motion be received, is that it? Is there a seconder, councillor Clark? Do you want to speak to the amendment, councillor?
I don't wish to speak at length, Madam Mayor, because this has been very thoroughly debated, and this really is a matter that I believe has been put to rest. Councillor Kennedy objects to that. It would certainly been debated at great length, and I'm not prepared to change my view certainly about the validity of the process that we went through. It was a process that was agreed by council, and it was fair, and it was a well thought out decision. I believe some of the parts of the motion also are really straying into operational areas as far as council's concerned. I'll leave it at that, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, could I speak against the amendment?
Yes, councillor Page.
One of the councillors already made a comment about having a photo taken with a sign. Yes, if the very little people could find it. problems finding the current ones. I strongly believe we did make a mistake and we should have adopted the spicer signs. They give a very clear message and an image of our history, our future, and they're just wonderful signs. So I think we have made a mistake and it's time we fix that mistake.
Thank you. Any speakers? Councillor Cool? Speakers again, for the motion?
I'd just like to make a comment, Madam Mayor. I don't know if anyone's seen the RFDS TV show promo. Anyone's seen the Broken Hill Gateway sign figured prominently, and it looks brilliant. We've used the gateway signage in for my daytime employment, Far West Local Health District, in a promotional video that we created. It looks great. The RFDS series, I believe, is going to go.
I've got a point of order, Madam Mayor.
What's your point of order, councillor?
I'm quite happy if Councillor Pool's speaking in favour of the amendment because it's starting to go on to the thing. Both Councillor Allgate and Councillor Page have been regularly pulled up for what's, I'll make a comment. I have no problem if Councillor Pool is speaking in favour, and it sounds like he is speaking in favour as he's promoting the sign. But for it just to be a comment, that's gone on this side.
I've taken it that he was speaking.
I was speaking for you.
I took it that he was speaking, has marked that he's speaking in favour of the amendment. Councillor McCall, further comment? Further debate?
Further debate is also consider the other artists that entered that competition, and they took the results of that competition in good faith. I don't see any howls of outrage from any other artists trying to overturn a due process.
Thank you. Councillor Speakers against the amendment, Councillor Allgate.
Yeah, I'll speak against the amendment. I think it's one of the most irresponsible decisions the council ever made. Ever. I think one of the other irresponsible decisions was the removal of the Naturopath mural. I really don't know where some people come from in terms of comparison. I mean, okay, there was a competition. It was given, as we always do, it was given to somebody from Melbourne, I think. It tells us nothing about Broken Hill. It tells us, those signs tell us nothing about the history of Broken Hill. The only acknowledgement is to the Indigenous community. There's really no reflection about Broken Hill's history. The difference between the likes of the Tibooburra sign, the Sturts National Park, and the Silverton sign, they have a story to tell, and they are used so much in terms of business photography, it's not funny. I've never seen anybody standing in that way. Sorry, I haven't seen the RFDS video. But I've never seen anybody standing in front of either of any of the signs in the welcome signs in the gateways of Broken Hill. Never. In fact, some of them you can't even see unless you're concentrating as you're moving along the road. Some of them are hidden in the blue bush and all the rest of it, on the Tibooburra Road, for instance. But without saying that, I'm an expert, I'm certainly not. I was disappointed and against the removal of the mural on Naturopaths. I was disappointed and against the signs that have currently been chosen. I'm still against them. And if you compared any one of the Broken Hill entry signs with the Silverton sign and put them side by side, there wouldn't be a person in the world that would pick the Broken Hill sign.
Thank you, Councillor Adams.
But just through you, Manager, this council perhaps looking at doing some remedial work that was discussed at the time, elevating those signs so that they are more noticeable and some kind of lighting or whatever to actually lift them.
Mr. General Manager.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, that's correct. Madam Deputy Mayor, the raising of it will have to go through traffic committee, but there's also the looking at putting LED lighting and a back display on the back, because obviously they don't all point towards the sunset, so alleviating that.
And that was part of the original plan. Okay,
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
sorry, I think you're speaking for the amendment. Okay, councillor.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I am. Look, I acknowledge that this was a very controversial matter. I believe that it's less so now. Those winning signs have been in, they've been established for 2 years. The image, as Councillor Fuel has mentioned, they're used by many clubs, many organisations in Broken Hill to advertise Broken Hill. And I don't know, I'm not an expert in photography, maybe it's the photography, but they look fantastic. I also note Councillor Adams' comment about the LED lights, and that's something too that I think we should make sure that we do. And I reject the comment that the majority want the signs removed. I think most people in Broken Hill are aware that this was a legitimate process. It was followed to establish a winner of the design competition, and it did. Most would be very concerned to think that council would now embark on a very, very expensive course of action to replace the signs. I also note another councillor has mentioned the other entrants in that competition. No word at all about them. Those people also entered the competition in good faith, and in good faith accepted the judgment of the panel. Most also would be concerned about the suggestion that was made at the time, and talk about irresponsible. I believe another councillor over here has talked about council being irresponsible. Well, I think there were some people in Broken Hill who were quite irresponsible, and certainly making suggestions that housing values would go down if the spices signs weren't adopted. And, you know, that certainly frightened some elderly residents who were very concerned. Could this possibly be true? Well, they only had to consult an expert, that is a real estate agent, to find out that there are many, many factors concerned with the value of houses in Broken Hill. One of them is not a sign. Also, we were told that tourists won't come here because there's no spices signs. Oh my goodness. Well, now, there's no beds in town. There are so many tourists here. 10,000 tickets, I believe, have already been sold for the Monday Bash without any knowledge at all of any signs, the existing ones or the spices signs. I think we can beat this up as much as we like, and indeed some people would like to, because we're 6 months out from an election. I think that we should note, and I think that Councillor Adams has already mentioned, as Ms. Spicer has already been offered an opportunity to give council her designs to be examined by a structural engineer. And, you know, they possibly, and a structural engineer might say, well, you know, some of these signs may need to be modified, perhaps, if there was a safety concern. I didn't mind Councillor Kennedy's suggestion about one of those signs being put up on the line of load, or the road to the line of load. And my suggestion would be the one that was concerned with mining. That would be completely appropriate. If indeed Ms. Spicer would consider that. However, letters that were sent to Ms. Spicer by the General Manager, I believe there were a number, she rejected them out of hand, did not want anything to do with council, about giving the designs to council, and in fact, the last letter that was sent did not get a reply. So I think, you know, the matter has well and truly been discussed over the last couple of years. I think people have made their minds up whether they are delighted with these existing signs or not. I don't think they're going to want council to embark on this very expensive campaign suggested by Councillor Kennedy, who I note did not supply any information about the costings involved.
Can I make a comment, Madam Chair? I really need to make a comment if you're not going to make it anyway.
Well, I then, you've already spoken to the
Yes,
motion.
well, I need to make a
We
comment.
are going to go.
Madam Chair, the councillors in this room are supposed to go through you. They're supposed to talk to you. That councillor, Councillor Clark, Councillor Laurie Clark, has looked at me during the whole presentation of her speech. She has not addressed you at all. She's addressed Councillor Kennedy and I. And if you look at the tapes later, you will see that.
Point of order, Madam Mayor, I reject that out of hand. In fact, I looked at Councillor
Check
Kennedy.
the tapes, check the tapes. I will ask you to check the tapes there.
Calm down, everyone.
Councillor Major,
Councillor
Councillor.
Clark. Okay, calm down. We are moving on. Thank you for your comment. Councillor
I'll speak against.
Kennedy speaking against.
Yes, again, I reflect with some of the comments that are made by Councillor Clark in that.
Councillor Kennedy speaking. I'm talking to your team.
Has been spoken by Councillor Clark.
Sorry, Councillor Kennedy.
I'm deaf on this.
Yes, not deaf on my side.
Councillor Clark and Councillor Cool made the statement, firstly from Councillor Cool, that an outraged artist, from an outraged artist. Another comment from Councillor Clark, Spicer had the opportunity, Spicer was given the opportunity by the General Manager.
Point of order, Madam Mayor, I'm going to object again. I did not refer to the person involved as Spicer. I said Ms. Spicer. Could you please be accurate? No, you are. No, I'm sorry. I'm going to object to your manners.
I'll call that point of order. Councillor Kennedy, if you're going to quote Councillor, please make sure that you catch all the quotes. There is a difference in reference to calling someone Spicer this, Spicer that, as I would say Kennedy this, Kennedy that, and saying Mr. Kennedy or Councillor Kennedy. So if you're going to make a quote about
The
Councillor,
point is not
please
the
be accurate.
name there, Turley. It is Spicer, Diana Spicer, whatever. The point is that Diana Spicer. Yeah. The point is that Councillor Clark said that Ms. Spicer, Deanna Spicer, had the opportunity to speak to the General Manager, had the opportunity to address issues, had the opportunity. There's no other artist whinging or making complaints or whatever. Let's be clear here. I made it clear right at the beginning of this meeting that it is a result from Peter Nash. I don't know where councillors are getting off attacking a local artist and using it in a council meeting where she's not here to defend herself. It is not appropriate for councillors to be questioning a councillor's merit, a artist's merit or whatever. She has not questioned it. She hasn't done anything. Councillor Clark said it's irresponsible. Some people who said that tourism might go down. Well, if you're going to mention someone, mention maybe their name as well so they can defend themselves. Yes, well, maybe you need to listen to the tape again in the middle of my, well, it happens every debate, Councillor Mayor Turley. Every debate, Councillor Clark makes some comment that I have to stop what I'm saying to respond to. It's not just one side, Madam Mayor. At what point does it become unruly conduct? No, it's true. It's unruly.
That way
It brings
every
it.
day of these meetings, Councillor.
Anyway, Councillor Clark also mentioned the election. And maybe councillors are bringing this up about because of the election. If it was because of the election, it must be a popular move, not an unpopular move, given given the fact that if a councillor was doing it for some sneaky motivation, as opposed to, I think the signs are terrible and I think we could do a lot better. Another thing that was mentioned was the cost of the signs, and how much it will cost for the thing. As several councillors have spoken about putting them on stilts and putting LED lighting at the back of them. Talk about having no respect for the artwork of an artist. The artwork was done, judged and accepted by the panel because of the sunset at the back of it. Now we have our so-called art experts here, who are councillors, going to put LED lighting at the back of them, which destroys the artwork which was intended. We're talking about cost. We have an opportunity to increase cost, not a blink of an eyelid from some of the councillors, but when you talk about cost, and Councillor Clark, perhaps she read the comment from the General Manager who, when there's no budget put in, the General Manager says how much? It's $36,000. So, for one, and as is said in the notice of motion, it is one sign I'm talking about, not several. And again, I'm responding to Councillor Clark into the middle of my debate because Councillor Clark had to say one. So again, taking off from what I'm saying to respond to Councillor Clark, that's the regular occurrence in this meeting as I speak, having to be interrupted by Councillor Clark. It is also said that people don't reject the sign and they've got used to that sign. Well, that's different from what I'm hearing, but every councillor hears something different, and I guess there's no real way of us knowing at this stage. Perhaps the September election will decide it, and as one of the councillors said, this is being put to rest. I think it was Councillor Brown said, I just checked my notes here, Councillor Brown, yes, said this matter has been put to rest. I can assure all councillors in this room it has not been put to rest, and it will be an issue and a voting issue come September. I will ensure that it's a voting issue come September because it's an issue that is important to the community. Maybe not as important as some issues, but it's an important issue and it shows how willing council as a whole is to listen to the community. We all know that the 200 people involved that came to that meeting were opposed to it, and to dismiss those people is, as Councillor Hawkeye said, irresponsible.
Thank you, Councillor.
I'll put question to the General Manager. I note there that you have said, Mr. General Manager, that the installation of one sign would be $36,000. I think Councillor Kennedy is talking about, in his motion, he's talking about 5 signs, but we have the costs involved with removing the existing signs, the costs involved with the making of the new signs, the cost involved with installing the new signs. It's slightly more, I would think, than $36,000. In fact, I would be thinking that was possibly a few $100,000. Would that be nearer, Mr. General Manager?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. The total cost of installing the 5 signs that we currently have $67,000. So just to do one sign, use around 36, put a few more thousand on probably for the demolishment of the current sign. So yeah, 36 for a new sign, but obviously if you're adding that up on top of what we've already spent, it'll go up into a couple of $100,000.
Yeah,
36 for one.
Just to through the chair, for a matter of point, there's no mention of 5 signs. It's mentioned one where a committee look at grant funding and whatever to look at all 5 signing. The only thing that was asked here was a $36,000 budget, and hence the reason the General Manager put the cost of this motion at $36,000. If the councillors check out the response from the General Manager's based on previous installation of the 5 is estimated the reasonable budget required to install 1 sign would be $36,000. If the General Manager thought it was 5 signs, he would have said 5. But obviously the General Manager reads the motion quite well and understands it's 1 sign.
I read the motion too, and there's a plural signs.
Sorry. Let's go through the chair, everyone. Thank you very much. Councillor Adams.
I'm suggesting we put it to the vote.
Okay. We've had great debate. We'll put the, sorry, I just need clarification. Councillor, you, oh no, that's okay. I'll just,
Madam Chair, I've had my hand up and you've seen me look the other way.
I didn't do that in purpose.
Well,
We're not
Madam
having,
Mayor,
are you asking a question, councillor?
Making it clear, we've heard all these arguments from the other side of our costings. I have spoken to the people that can.
Councillor, you've already spoken in the debate. You were the first to speak against.
You're saying I can't make comment.
No.
Well,
you
let me
can't
make comments.
You can ask a
That's
question.
normal.
You can ask a question, but you were the first to speak against the amendment.
Madam Mayor, everyone on that other side has been given the respect of having their say. For the last 5 years, 4.5 years, most times, when I go to say something, you either look the other way or drop the guillotine. And it's very disappointing, Madam
Councillor,
Mayor.
that's untrue. And you know, you were the first person, to show how untrue it is, you were the first person I went to at the start of the amendment debate. So to say that, it's quite untrue. And it's not like you to do that. So you have spoken, and I'll put Councillor Brown's amendment. All those in favour? Councillor Cool, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, Councillor Adams, Councillor Mayor Shirley. I'm looking at those online. Councillor Nolan, against. Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Allgate, Councillor Gallagher, and Councillor Page. The motion, the amendment now becomes a motion.
I move amendment, Madam Mayor.
What's your amendment,
My
Councillor?
amendment that the notice of motion be received and the council conduct a poll on whether
Just can you
the
take it
community
slowly?
conducts a
Thank you.
poll on whether
Get
the
it.
community believes the gateway signs should be replaced with
Do you
DM
want to speak to the
size.
second of the amendment, Councillor?
More than happy to second.
I will speak to the amendment, Madam Mayor. The reason I move this amendment is because a number of councillors are saying that they believe that the vast majority of community are for the sign that are currently there as opposed to changing them. We won't know for sure one way or the other. The only way you're going to know for sure is if you actually ask the community. And the best way to ask the community is via a poll, put it out in the rate notices if need be and online. And let's find out from the community what percentage are for the terrible signs we have, as opposed to, and if council likes to put that and say the terrible signs, as opposed to the really good signs that we could have.
Thank you, Councillor. If there's no speakers against, I'll put the amendment, Councillor Kennedy's amendment. All those in favour? Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Allgate, Councillor Page, Councillor Gallagher. Against? Councillor Cool, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, Councillor Adams, Mayor Shirley, Councillor Nolan. Thank you. The amendment's been lost. We'll now go to Councillor Brown's motion, which becomes the amendment, which becomes a motion. Councillor Kennedy, you was the original mover. Would
Yes.
you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is another disappointing result, in my opinion. So it's a result that could have been so much better. It's an opportunity for councillors to work together with each other rather than play politics. That hasn't happened. There's an opportunity for council as a whole to work with the community. That didn't happen. And 4 months to go, it's just really disappointing. With 4 months to go, we can't have a council that works cohesively together to come up with what is the best result for the community. And disappointing, very disappointing.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor McCool, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, Councillor Adams, Mayor Shirley, Councillor Nolan. Against? Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Allgate, Councillor Page, Councillor Gallagher. Declared carried. We move to item 5. Motion of which notice has been given. Report number 14/21, page. Oh, I've got a page there. The Library Hub and Cultural Precinct. Councillor Kennedy.
Yes, I'll move the motion.
Seconder.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor
I made this motion to conduct a poll on Facebook and there could be potential to be sent out in the rate notices with a number on it, so we make sure we don't duplicate who are voting. The people, what has been stated many times from different councillors is that the majority of the community are for this new library hub that is estimated to cost 20 million, but could end up blowing out to 30 million. Who knows what it will cost when you have a look at the civic centre that's blowing out significant in cost. As we've heard from different project managers, it's very difficult to estimate a cost, and smart project managers build in a 30%, up to a 30% contingency plan, because often there's overruns in cost. So there's nothing to say that this project won't end up costing 30 million. It'll be using $6.5 million from waste reserves, $5.7 million PHP grant, which we may not get. We hopefully will get it again, but we may not get. This is for a building that will mean there's an extra asset there for the Broken Hill Council, and that there is a comment in there that they don't believe it will cost too much extra. We all know that when you get a new asset, there is a significant cost to the community in maintenance, operational costs. Libraries are at the point where they are being used less and less, not more and more. The way of trying to go around this is call it a hub or a cultural precinct or whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, it's a library. That will cost upwards of 20 million, but up to $30 million. It is not necessarily what the vast majority of the community want, and even if most people would like to see that, there's many in the community that believe there's that $20 to $30 million can be better spent making this city more livable, making sure our footpaths are clean, our roads are better maintained, our parks and gardens, all our parks, and allow all our parks and gardens to be better maintained. Perhaps even get roundabouts looking nice again, instead of having pavers and making it look hot and desolate. So there's plenty of ways this money could be spent, and the community really do need to decide this, particularly when we are looking at an election in September. This is a big ticket item. This council has 4 months to go, and this is something that needs to be put on hold until after a new council is elected, after we find out exactly what the community wants.
Thank you, councillors. Any speakers against? Councillor Adams?
Just a couple of comments. I'm not quite sure where it's his thoughts on libraries. We did have a huge community consultation. I am actually someone that does spend a lot of time in the library, and the consultations were excellent. I'm not sure. I don't think I saw Councillor Kennedy at any of them, but some of us were there and had great discussions with the community that were interested. This is something. Libraries are not just libraries with books. It is a hub. There are communities out there waiting for them to be able to use meeting rooms and conference rooms and so on in that hub. If anyone has seen it, it's a magnificent project, and I hope to see it, and I hope to see it soon.
Thank you, councillor. Speakers for councillor Kennedy's motion.
Madam Mayor, an amendment.
What's your amendment, councillor?
My amendment is that the motion be received.
You're leaving that way. Seconder. Councillor Cole. Councillor Brown, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, Madam Mayor, as Councillor Adams mentioned, we have had significant public consultation. The great part of that consultation, I believe, was with users of the library. We have 10,000 current members of the library. Those of us who spent a couple of days last week attending the Western Division Conference, giving up 2.5 days of our time, as you know, we commonly do, would have heard one of the speakers, someone who's employed by the Office of Local Government, give us the results of national surveys they've done on what people find important. And in that survey, even though the local results are different from place to place, and we don't have local results specifically for Broken Hill, but the national results were that people valued libraries and cultural services above sporting facilities and sporting services. And I know I've seen previously myself studies of what people do in their leisure time. In fact, far more people visit libraries and art galleries and things, cultural institutions of that sort than actually attend sporting events. I'm not denying the real importance of sporting facilities and sporting events, but I'm making the point that libraries and cultural services are of very great significance to people. And those consultations that we held at great length have indicated that. Councillor Page requested some figures. I think one of the questions I noticed a couple of months before last month about the results of those surveys, and that they were quite clearly a majority of people wish a new library to be built and built behind the town hall facade. So that the ultimate choice of that is a result of community consultation. We've also spent a significant amount of money and effort in engaging the consultants, and what we have is, I don't think any of us like the term shovel ready, but we do have a shovel ready and very, very detailed plan that's just waiting for funding from the state and federal government. I also take some issue with the suggestion that money, even though Councillor Kennedy in his explanation did break the source of that money that has been allocated to the community hub, the project, but very small amount of that total amount. And I also take would be available for any other purpose, and also take issue with the hypothetical amount that has been suggested. We just don't know that. And I'm talking about $30 million. There's no basis in fact for that. That is a hypothesis. Yes, so Madam Mayor, I'll leave my comments to that. This is another one of those issues.
Thank you. Councillor Page was next. Councillor Orgate. Councillor Page.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to ask a question of Councillor Marion Brown. Those statistics we were given the other day on percentages, was it 68% in support of the libraries, was it? Yeah. My memory's not as bad as I thought it was.
Right. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Orgate speaking again.
Just speaking against Madam Chair. I was quite surprised when the council decided to take this course of action over the library hub. At one meeting, I think it was the meeting before the council decided to adopt the fact that we would build a new library hub. At the very meeting, I think it was the meeting before, or one or two meetings before, the council made a decision to reduce the hours of the current library because of a downturn in patronage. And I raised that at the time, and I wondered why, when you've got a downturn in patronage at the library, why you'd be embarking on such a significant program that's going to cost, it's going to cost at least 20 million, however you approach it. And I was a little bewildered then, and I'm still bewildered. I mean, there may well have been a lot of public consultation. My understanding is that the consultation with people who, not all of them are regular attendees of the library, but they need a meeting place and whatever, because as the council has said, it's not a library, it's a hub. When I called it the library going back 3 or 4 years ago, early in the piece when it was moved, it was said, oh, it's not a library, it's a hub, it's going to have lots of facilities, there's going to be a coffee shop, and there'll be lounges, and I made a comment at that stage. Another coffee shop in Argent Street, another one to compete against all those that are currently there, some of which are just struggling already. But the thing is that another thing that strikes me unusually, we were given the results of a survey just recently, and I think the survey was 230 people. And on the basis of that 230 people, it's been considered that the library should go ahead because the bulk of them were in favour of it. Obviously, they are people that attended the consultation processes and have a commitment to needing that new library. I asked some people who attended some of the consultations if the actual cost to the ratepayers was spelled out. I asked some of those people, did they know how much this was going to cost? And their answer was no. If you're going to build something, a Taj Mahal, and if the people are going to pay for a lot of it, not all of it, but they're going to pay a sizable amount, and it'll be loans for 20 years, they ought to know what the cost is going to be to them, and they don't know. 230 people have been surveyed, and what they've said is they want it. So that's enough to make sure this project goes ahead. The 200 people who come into the gallery when the signs were discussed, those 200 people, they didn't count. But the 230 who attended the store, who contributed to the survey, they're more important because they're surveying.
It's a bit off-putting on this side.
Yeah.
Sorry, councillor, I know I did ignore you earlier when you were talking, when councillor Brown was talking, so.
My apologies, madam.
Yeah, thank you for apologising, he's apologised.
All I'm saying is, what I'm really saying is, I was never in favour of it, I haven't changed my mind. It won't attract people back to Argent Street, which was the ultimate aim at the original time of decision making. It was going to attract people back into the CBD. It might attract some extra people to the hub. They won't go to the CBD, they won't go down Argent Street. But the thing that amuses me is it was a decision made at a time when the council had recently significantly reduced the hours of operation of the current library, and 230 people surveyed are in favour of it, or the bulk of them are in favour of it, and that's significant according to the council. But 200 people attended the council gallery in person and really put forward their displeasure at the ignorance that the council displayed to them. Those 200 people didn't count. It's just double standards.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Adams?
I don't think we can actually two in the same day. One was a protest at something that was done within the right way, structure-wise, and for that competition. This was a consultation with our people to see what they were interested in. What I would just say is one of the things we have to remember is that part of this is our archives. The most important thing, even connected to our library, is that magnificent archives we have. People come from all over the world to use. It's very limited for people to be able to use it for research, and it should be out there for anyone. And that is what PhD are talking about with their money. Is the archive section of it. I think one thing we do have to remember is that we do have to get these grants. We're not going to be able to go ahead with this if we don't get the grant money. We're not asking people for any more.
And I think that's what through you, Madam Chair, that's what Adams is right. But we've moved $6 million from the garden.
Councillor,
Point of order, Madam Mayor. Councillor Allgate's already spoken.
thank you, councillor. Thank you, councillor. I accept your point of order, councillor Brown. Thank you, councillor Allgate. So we have speakers against the motion. Councillor Kennedy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Let's keep in mind that my motion isn't about speaking against it in the first instance. It's about finding out exactly what people want via a poll, so that at the end of it, we can say with certainty whether people are for it or against. Just a quick look at these numbers. Cameron Morley State Library 1, community 100, young leaders 9, business community 10, 12, Indigenous community 6, community 40. These are pretty small numbers, and we actually don't have much in the way of telling us exactly who's for it, what isn't against it. You heard Councillor Brown talk about a national survey, and it's fine. Here we go again. The national survey is obviously more important than the local surveys, and that says 68% support libraries. Well, all the councillors here that have been here for quite a long time would know that always the top of our list is roads at 90-something%. Below that is footpaths at 90-something%. So when you talk 68%, it's pretty low, low down on the rate of importance. But that doesn't mean that it won't be important. But remember also, a lot of this came about because council was going to move the library to the Mural building. And councillors might remember that initially the building of the new library was the idea put forward by me using the $5.7 million grant, which the previous general manager, James Rontron, did take on board. The proposal I originally brought up, which was I thought was fantastic. Why move to the Mural building, or why move the archives down to the basement in the admin building when we could have used the $5.7 million to build a nice new little archive with a nice new little library, which most of the community, I think, would have been behind, and a lot of the people probably spoke in the positive initially because they didn't want the library moved to the Mural building, and that's the reality. It then went from that to this Taj Mahal, as Councillor Allgate has referred to it, and that's exactly what it is. And councillors, no councillor in this room knows whether the community are for it or against it. From 230 people, what was the question asked? With a project as big as the one we're talking about, especially with the Civic Centre fiasco, we need to make sure before the council spends any money of significance like this, the community are right behind it, not the users of the library or the users of the library that have been asked a question that leads them in the right direction. It's quite easy to get survey respondents to answer questions however you like. Councillor Brown said people often use things like cultural things like the Civic Centre, like the library. For Councillor Brown's information, soccer in the 6 months has 40,000 people attend. Football's probably a way, way bigger number. I don't know where the data to back up Councillor Brown's statement comes from. And maybe from a national level, that may be how it is. But in Broken Hill, I can tell you sport is number one. It is not the library. The library we are talking is spending, Councillor Brown said she took some offence to me using the amount of 30 million and went on to say we don't know exactly what it is. Well, that's right, we don't know exactly what it is. It's mentioned at 20 million, but we can use the Civic Centre for an example, which was 35 million, that blew out significantly. So if I use a heightened figure, because we have people that have been in project management that said you have to build that 30%. 25% is usually the lowest contingency you build into a project in Far West New South Wales. I think you'll find that 25% will probably be a little bit on the low side. So 30 million from experts is what you should be using. 20 million is the guessing, building a contingency of 25% plus, you're starting to get up to that amount. So when you go out and ask the community, you've got to be honest with them, especially when you have had a fiasco like the Civic Centre. The council can barely, thank you, Madam Mayor, can barely be able to have another PR disaster in a big project that the community are not supportive of.
Thank you, councillor. If there's no further debate.
Yes, I'd like to actually speak in support of the amendment, Madam Mayor. I think I'd like to answer a couple of.
You can talk through me if you like.
I could talk. Oh, I'll do, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
No, excuse me, I'll just adjust my chair here. Madam Mayor, I'd like to answer a couple of questions that were raised there by other councillors. Certainly, people who attended the engagement sessions, I attended all of them, they couldn't be given a costing because the design was not made until after the engagement sessions, because all of the suggestions that were made by the public of Broken Hill as to what they wanted in that building had to be considered and then the design made. So, you know, at the engagement process, at the very, very beginning of the engagement process, you don't know what the design is going to look like. I'd also like to make the point that it was the government through Libraries New South Wales which has told Broken Hill, you need a new big library. Your library is too small for the population. So that is one of the very big reasons that Broken Hill Council has decided in the first place that they needed a new establishment. Certainly the Pulluan building was considered in the beginning. I don't think, if I recall correctly, that that was big enough either, that particular building. The public engagement, now it was mentioned by another councillor that probably not everybody who was there was a member of the library. That's true, some of them now weren't members of the library, but they were commenting on things they would like to have in the library. Meeting rooms, rooms where you could gather and do craft activities. There was even a suggestion by a member of the public that there should be a room where students or young people could come and edit their homemade videos and things like this. It could become a place of learning much greater than just books. But saying that, I can't really say that there would be a coffee shop in there. I don't know if anybody really wants a coffee shop, but that was an early suggestion at one of the engagement sessions. But it was pointed out that we're not trying to compete with establishments in Argent Street. We are trying to complement it. I was very chuffed to hear that there's going to be a nice big reading area for children, a nice big comfortable reading area to encourage them to come and engage with books. As for the suggestion that the money for the library should be spent on roads and footpaths, that's already covered by an infrastructure loan. I'm very pleased, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our workers on council who have been doing a great job with the resealing of the roads and the building of footpaths already. I think our public have already noted that these things are taking place. Sporting facilities, I think Councillor Kennedy, for one, would be delighted with the development at O'Neill Park. It's going to be a massive development and greatly encouraging to a number of sports. The library isn't about competition between libraries and sporting venues. It's not meant to be. It's about Broken Hill moving forward. We have our history, we have our heritage. We are leveraging that to the full extent that we can with tourism. It's very important to tourism. But new modern buildings are very important for growing Broken Hill and presenting ourselves as a progressive city with potential for growth. I think But the new library, the new hub, if you want to call it a hub, call it anything you like, it's going to be welcomed by anyone who is interested at all in the 25 in 25 project. And you know what? There's a lot of people in Broken Hill who are very interested in that.
Thank you, councillor. Is there any further debate? If there is no further debate, I'll put councillor Brown's amendment. All those in favour? Councillor McCool, councillor Brown, councillor Clark, councillor Adams, councillor Gallagher, councillor Norman, Mayor Turley. The amendment has become a motion. We'll move to councillor Kennedy as the original mover of the motion for a right of reply.
Thank you. Yeah, just a right of reply to the few of the things that have been brought up. Councillor Clark mentioned in the report that the reason we're getting a new library is because someone in Sydney told us we need a big one. I find that peculiar as well. Suddenly Sydney again, National New South Wales Library or whatever. I thought we're here to represent the community, but again, that's fine. Consultants already, Councillor Brown said consultants have already been paid a lot of money and we've spent a lot of money. I don't know what that's meant to mean, so we spent a lot of money, so let's not find out what the community wants, because they might not want and then we've wasted that money. I don't know what that means, I assume that's what it means. The motion that I had moved, notice of motion that I submitted, wasn't about saying we oppose the library, or we support the library, or we oppose parks, gardens, or we are for parks and gardens. The question was to put a poll out to the community to find out if their number one thing that they wanted to spend that much money on a new library. We can argue and we can make it look like it's all about I oppose this, you're for this, but the motion is to find out what the motion was to find out exactly what the community wanted to do, not 230. And as Councillor Clark said, we didn't know at the time what it was going to cost. Well, you can't use what people are saying as positive. You haven't told them what that means to them. So even if most people in that 230 or whatever were for it, you must give them all the information and then ask them again. And that's what the poll would allow to happen. Talking about meeting rooms and all this. There's meeting rooms at the community centre. We have the uni in Crystal Street that has students there. We have the Civic Centre, which has been changed to do different things. So we are again now talking about doubling up with meeting rooms. So it's gone from a library now, we've got somewhere for them nice to meet. So it's going to cost us a fortune now to have a meeting. I wonder what the community would think if what we'll spend $20 to $30 million on is a library, but it's not a library, it's a meeting room as well. Geez, what a well done. Again, it's a poll to find out exactly what the community wants. We've got an election coming up. Let's find out so the new council knows whether the community truly are behind spending huge amounts of money, which could end up any amount given the Civic Centre. So it may not even stop at 30 million, it could end up 130 million. As Councillor Brown said, we don't really know that. So we can chuck any figures we like out there, can't we? 25 and 25 was mentioned. Well, Peter Nash was one of the founding members of 25 and 25, and he's spoken strongly against the cultural centre and believes it's not money well spent. He believes, like I believe, banners in Argent Street, start making Argent Street a place people want to be and let the businesses take control, because business owners are very smart people. You find most of the time when it comes to councils or other governments, they're far behind what business people do, because business people, if they get it wrong, go bankrupt. So most of the people that are successful in business usually are good operators. So council will take note to listen to some of those business owners that have survived 30, 40 years. Myself, 27 years in business. To survive in business 27 years, you actually have to be doing something right. You learn very quickly, If you don't listen to your customer,
Seconds, councillor
thank
Kennedy.
you, Madam Mayor. If you don't listen to your customer, you go out of business very quickly. If you spend money that doesn't get a return, you go out of business very quickly. Councils are different. They make a mistake, they just up rates. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Cool, councillor Brown, councillor Clark, councillor Adams, councillor Gallagher, councillor Nolan, Mayor Shirley. Declare the motion carried. Thank you, everybody, for your patience with those motions. I'm sorry, I have to do it again. Councillor Kennedy, councillor Organ, councillor Page. My apologies. We'll move to item 9, decision motion, for which there is nil. Item 10, reports from delegates, for which there is nil. And item 11, we go to reports. Item 1 is Broken Hill City Council report number 51/21, page 44, council meeting arrangements. Do I have a mover for this? Moved by councillor Adams, second by councillor Cool. Councillor Adams, do you want to speak to the motion?
No, Madam Mayor, it's very clear, it's a continuation of where we've been.
I'll move amendment.
What's your amendment, councillor?
Amendment is 1 and 2. And that council oppose non-in-person attendance at meetings at number 3.
Going to speak to that? Oh, sorry, do you have a second, councillor Gage?
Yes.
I'll speak to that. I think it's important, very important, that the community sees the councillors make all efforts to attend meetings, and if they can't attend, they put in an apology or a request for a leave of absence. I don't want to get to the point where people are going away to work or whatever because suddenly the council's a secondary thing rather than a primary thing. Councillors should be making all efforts to attend council meetings as often as they can, and if they can't attend, they don't deserve the right to vote.
Is there any speakers against the amendment? Councillor,
Sure, we're on the same page. I'm just one little bit confused here.
this is item 1.
I know, but I'm a bit confused with Councillor Kennedy's thoughts, to be honest.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's what sort of threw me a little bit because, this is something, we did have a briefing on this and there were a lot of things thrown around there and there was a concern that, about that, about the council's meetings and councillors being here in person. And it was very clear that everyone believed that that was a priority. This situation of being able to Zoom and whatever because you're away on business, or if you're looking after someone and they're ill and you can't make it, I think it's fair enough. I wouldn't like to see it be abused, and I think we were asked for submissions to the Office of Local Government, which we have contributed to, and that was very clear. We made that very clear that first and foremost, our obligation was to be here in person. But do we penalise other people, considering during COVID we have found out that Zoom does work? There's genuine reasons why we shouldn't use it. I don't know what they are. I think we should have that there, but always in person at our meetings is desirable.
Thank you. Speaking for the amendment, councillor Page.
No, just making comment. At the start of the meeting tonight, it was very clear everyone here had to endorse both those councillors if we'd accept them using the system that we have. So I think that is covered very well. If you're not happy with their attendance on the night, you don't accept them as using the system. Worked well tonight, so.
Thank you, councillor. Good point. But you need to speak. Is there any further speakers for the amendment? No. I'll put the speakers against. Amendment, no further debate. I'll put councillor Kennedy's amendment. All those in favour, councillor Kennedy, councillor Aldgate, against, councillor Cool, councillor Brown, councillor Clark, councillor Page, councillor Adams, councillor Gallagher, councillor Nolan, Mayor Turley. The motion, the amendment is lost. We'll go back to the motion which stands and go into debate. Councillor Adams had moved it, councillor Cool seconded. Is there any speakers against?
Against.
Councillor Kennedy?
Speaking against, look, we all know that this COVID has meant that there is Zoom meetings, and I don't think they've worked very well at all, to tell you the truth. I think the community have been left out of a lot in the decision-making process. I think there's no way they can be as transparent as an open council meeting. You only have to look tonight, barely heard anything from councillors Gallagher or Nolan. We know that this is in place until the 31st of December. I'm hopeful that the Department of Local Government decides on the 31st of December that it's not acceptable for councillors to Zoom into meetings. I think as a community, we can all expect and should all expect our councillors to be at those meetings in person, so that members of the public get the opportunity to perhaps speak to councillors before and after, and see how they engage in dealing with a particular motion or issue. You can't see that on Zoom. I haven't really taken much notice of Councillor Nolan or Gallagher because they're not here, they're not being seen. I doubt that any members of the public in the public gallery would have taken any notice either, and that's my big issue. My big issue is I think everything should be about the community and the public, and as councillors we should be attending in person. We know that it has to happen until the 31st of December. My problem with the motion is that council is to write off to the Office of Local Government saying that we support this beyond the 31st of December. And local government has always worked well for me at meetings, and I'm sure for most of the councillors here. We appreciated the fact that for the 22 or so years I've been involved, 26 years for Councillor Turley, 26 years for Councillor Page, well beyond that for Councillor Brown. It has always worked. Why change something you know that works for the community? The community get to see it. Council, by supporting or sending away the submission to the Office of Local Government, I believe lets the community down by not letting the Office of Local Government know just how important face-to-face meetings are, and there should be no substitute. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers for the motion? No further speakers for. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Cool, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, Councillor Page, Councillor Adams, Councillor Mitchell, Councillor Nolan, Councillor Gallagher. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Do that again, didn't I? Such a manual cockerel is to get through the meeting. Maybe I should have been a Zoom meeting. All those against, Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Aldgate. Sorry, Councillor. Thank you, councillors. The motion is carried. Yeah, Jay, you've lost your job already.
Lisa, you tap Jay.
I think it's also more in the news.
Madam Mayor, it's nice to see you.
Yeah, well, we always have here in the chamber at times. It's a long night. Keep going. Item 2, Brokenhill City Council Report number 52/21, Investment Report for March 2021, page 70. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Clark, seconder, Councillor Cool. Oh, sorry, I missed someone on there. Who was that? Councillor Nolan. Do you want to speak to the motion, councillor Clark?
Just to say, Madam Mayor, that it's good to see a positive investment report in this particular climate, and we can see that the GDP is rising, the interest rates seem to be rising as well for our savings, which is really very good, and that we are indeed fully compliant with policy. So thank you.
Thank you. Any speakers against? If no speakers against, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, councillor Cool, councillor Brown, councillor Clark, councillor Kennedy, councillor Alderson, unanimous vote. Thank you, councillors. We'll move to item 3, Brokenwood City Council report number 53/21, adoption of the draft corporate credit card, page 83. Do I have a mover? Councillor Adam, councillor Nolan, second by councillor Gallagher. Councillor Nolan, do you want to speak to the report?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. This was looked at in detail at Board Risk Improvement Committee and minor changes made, which were still important changes to get out this way. It's time to go, yes, this ticks the right boxes, let's get on with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any debate against?
Yeah, I'll speak again.
Councillor Kennedy.
I'll speak against it in principle. I don't like the way of the credit card system. I understand the necessity of it and how it makes it a lot easier. I'm always opposed to big amounts when it comes to credit card debt. We've all seen many terrible results on TV from different TV shows about what can happen if it isn't used. I know there is risk processes in the document to try to make sure that it's not abused, but I speak against it in principle, and that's it.
Thank you, councillor. Any further speakers for? No further speakers for. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, councillor Cook, councillor Brown, councillor Clark, councillor Page, councillor Adams, councillor Gallagher, councillor Nolan, Mayor Chile. Against? Councillor Kennedy, councillor Aldgate. Declare the motion passed. Move to item 4, report number 54/21, page 92, the draft business support policy. Do I have a mover for that? Moved by councillor Cool, seconded by councillor Adams. Councillor Cool, would you like to speak to the motion?
And now to say that this being motion is in course of the public exhibition. No, definitely hope that the business community goes over the fine tooth comb and gets back to us.
Speakers again?
I'll move an amendment.
What's your amendment, councillor?
That 1, 2, 3, and 4. But also a 5 in the meantime, that council actually have a bit of a working group formulated, perhaps the general manager can arrange that, to expand on the business policy. I think it's a fair bit there that can be added between now and 28 days. That's just a working group.
Councillor Cool, are you going to incorporate that?
Not against it, but I'm wondering if we're endorsing it to go out on public policy, we can't make any changes while it's on public exhibition. It has to come back to the council that we consider any submissions. Then we, if there's any changes or amendments, then it goes up to the full council for endorsement. But we have our economic key direction working group, which is certainly open to any councillor to come along and pitch in and make suggestions. But again, this is going to go on public exhibition, and during that time, anyone can make a submission. Anyone can get together and come up with any ideas, anything they want to change, anything they want to add to it. So I'm not against Councillor Kennedy, but I can't see
other management in the council, so that the councillors are interested in this policy, rather than have to put in a submission as an individual. Council can put in submissions to their own policies as a thing, and amendments don't mean, unless it's a complete change of the concept of the policy, it doesn't require another 28 days.
Thank you. So I'm just clarifying, so you're moving this way, so the author of the policy, what was the argument? Is the author of the
So I've
policy?
moved 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
I would like to go through it to expand on the policy if needed, with the general manager workshop with council.
And just a question on that. How would that work through the chair to the general manager? Can you make changes to that draft, or would you have to wait until it comes? You make submissions to the draft and then it's considered after the 28 days. I'm just questioning how that's going to work.
Mr. General Manager, sorry, just can I get who's seconding Councillor Kennedy's amendment? Councillor Allgate?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, council can make changes to the policy whilst on the 28 days of the exhibition. But when it then comes back to council, it's considered that the changes that have been made from the document that went out on public display is major or material in its intent. Then it will be required to go for another 28 days, but it's probably no different to receiving those public submissions that we've all that 28 days that are incorporated into the final document as well, and that may or may not change it materially to go out on public display or can be adopted by council at that meeting.
Madam Chair, maybe we should consider it confirmed for a month and then this working group can go over it again.
Can I just clarify, isn't our economy working group looking at this? Could I suggest a way forward is that if our economy is the working group looking at it, that an invitation will go out to all the councillors to our economy working group.
That would fit in with what Councillor Kennedy's mentioned.
Yeah.
That would be, I'd agree with that, yeah. So saying that, Madam Mayor, I would agree with the addition of point 5 and that the working group be our economy key working group with obviously an invitation to councillors to attend for that part.
I'll go to Councillor Kennedy, do you accept that?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, then let's go forward. Good work, Councillor Cool. So Councillor Kennedy, you're not going to accept that.
No, I'll just speak to my amendment.
Okay, speak to your amendment.
I don't was saying council was coming to accept it as an amendment. The reason I move this is because even though it's a short policy, it's an important policy. The draft business support policy is a policy that needs, in my opinion, input from all councillors. It's trying to say,
Just excuse me, Councillor Kennedy, sorry to interrupt, but I've said I'll accept number 5.
Councillor Kennedy has said no.
no, well, I've accepted it.
You said you'd accepted, change the words to our economy key direction working group, and Councillor Kennedy said no.
Well,
Yeah.
I said no.
No, he said no. So Councillor Kennedy is in debate.
It's an important policy, and I appreciate where council is coming from to go through a committee of council. I moved the motion because I would like to work in an action be a working day where we have butcher's paper or whatever the general manager thinks right. I think that's an important policy. It's a small policy, but it's a policy that needs to be written in a way that gives most benefit to businesses in the community. What would happen with the committee? So you have a recommendation from the committee. I would rather the recommendation of the council as a whole to go through the submissions. I think it's important that it's seen as a council as a whole, as opposed to a working group that has 2 councillors on it, but an invitation for other councillors to attend. It'd be similar when I our community does it, then I'd say, well, I invite you, but it's a decision of the people that are involved in that. The council working party or group or whatever you want it to do would be the whole council, all equal, making recommendations, speaking with the advice of the general manager, putting ideas together, probably with the view of writing submission for an amendment to the final business support. So even though I acknowledge where Councillor Cool's coming from, it doesn't make the purpose of the amendment idea.
Madam Chair, I'll accept number 5 to the motion.
Okay, so we're putting into the motion. Okay, if there's no further debate, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, against, declared carried. And I'll take a, so it was, sorry, I'm just going to check that again because I forgot to check Councillor Gallagher and Councillor Nolan. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillors. Councillors, I have a matter of emergency that we extend our meeting time as it is now 9 o'clock. Can I have a mover to extend? Can I have Councillor Cool, second by Councillor Clark. All those.
I have a couple of minutes break.
Well, I need to put the motion first, please, Councillor. All those in favour? Against? Sorry, Councillor Norman, you're in favour? That's a unanimous vote. Thank you very much. We'll adjourn for 5 minutes. Oh, sorry, Councillor, sorry, Manager of Communications.
Sorry, it's only just advised on the council that the live stream will still be going, so.
So if you're talking into your microphones, it will be there. 2 minutes, councillors. Yeah. Councillors, we're starting to come back. Thank you. I have 3 months. Oh, no. Okay, councillors, we're just waiting for Councillor Brown. There's moments where you can change the main lead up to twist toilet. No, I know, I'm on it, by the way. Councillors, can I, Councillor Page? Councillor Page, can I have a move to recommence the bill? Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Clark. All those in favour? Declare that unanimous. Councillors, move to item 5, Rockingham City Council report number 55/21, page 7, the draft city gymnastic. Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor McCall. No, Councillor Clark. I thought Councillor Clark was before you watched the video. Councillor Adams, you want to speak to your motion?
Yes, but Mayor, this is a great plan, and it is a nice plan for Argent Street, and it's here to go out for consultation to the people, for them to see what's there and come back with their thoughts. I have already given them to a lot of consultations, but this is the big one for them to check. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and number 5. I think Councillor Kennedy, you'll be able to read that one. This is the one that's really, let's get this happening so that we will have Christmas banners up, and we will be lighting up Open Street. So let's do it.
Thank you, councillor. Is there any speakers against?
Move amendment, Madam Mayor.
What's your amendment?
My amendment is number 1 and number 5 as number 2. And that the draft CBD master plan be deferred until after the September 2021 election.
And second, councillor Gates, second.
I move this
Can you
because,
speak to the motion, councillor?
thank you, Madam Mayor. I move this because, yes, I'm very happy with the banners and Councillor Adams got that exactly right. I'm sure I'm not the only one. I think it will have a big impact on the community, small amount of money to be spent, but a big impact. Some of the things that I have, I know that we spoke about it together at the budget workshop about that we don't have to accept everything in the plan. But there is things like the median street and all that sort of stuff. And I never put out plans or policy that I don't agree with totally. I don't put them out and then say I'll amend it when it comes back and I hear from the community. It's a very big, important document, and it is one I think that the new council, in consultation with the community, needs to drive ahead after the election. I think we can get these individual things done pretty quickly that we all support that are in the master plan, such as the banners, and there's some other things in there that I think are really, really good that we should be doing progressively between now and the election. But for the master plan as a whole, I think it needs to be held over until the new council is elected in 4 months' time.
Thank you. Speakers against the amendment?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Clark?
Yes, this is the draft.
Councillor Clark?
Sorry. This is the draft of the management plan, and it has been put together after quite a number of engagement sessions with the public. These suggestions in this master plan come from the public. They are some very interesting suggestions. I would draw the attention of the public, I'm looking over at the public now, I would draw the attention of the public to, in their business paper, page 119, which gives a little summary there of the key design initiatives. But don't get eye strained, because the public will actually be able to view a much larger version of this plan. With bigger writing, you'll be able to see that much easier. On page 145 in the business paper, but also included in the larger version, which the public will see, will be costings. Now, don't faint and drop to the ground when you see the total of those costings, because that takes into account if we did every single thing that was suggested in the CBD plan, that would be what it would cost. And that's not going to happen. It will be this draft put out, the public have a look, the public decide what they want. They give us information as to what they like, what they don't like, why they don't like it, what they would like to see in addition, and then the process moves on. If we leave it until after September for the public to become even engaged in this further, goodness knows when it's going to start. We know we're going to be getting the banners. We know we're going to be getting the wayfinding, I was going to say wayfaring, wayfinding signs that the public have also been asking for, and tourists certainly would be asking for, and they should be established before Christmas. That's going to be wonderful. But that implies that the rest, even if we start right at this very minute, are certainly not going to be able to be in place until after September. So this process is a long one and we have to get started. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is there any further debate? No further debate? I'll put councillor Kennedy's amendment. All those in favour? Councillor Kennedy, councillor Allgate. All those against? Councillor Cool, councillor Brown, councillor Clark, councillor Page, councillor Adams, Mayor Shelley, councillor Gallagher and councillor Nolan. The amendment is lost. We'll go back to the motion, to councillor Adams' motion. Is there, we've straightened it out. So councillor Adams, is there any further debate? Councillor Adams, right or fine?
No, Madam Mayor, I just encourage everyone to read this well and just see what is possible for the city of Birmingham.
Thank you, councillor Adams. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Cool, councillor Cool, councillor Brown, councillor Clark, councillor Page, councillor Adams, councillor Gallagher, councillor Nolan, and Mayor Shelley. All those against? Councillor Kennedy and councillor Allgate. Thank you. The motion is successful. We'll now move to item 6, the Birmingham City Council report number 56/21, date 15th of April, draft tree management plan, page 216. I have a mover, councillor Adams. Second, councillor Clark. Councillor Adams, do you want to speak to the motion?
Look, it's a very, very comprehensive report. Found it interesting. It's something that I think we have to sit down and read over and over again. What I would say, perhaps I can add a fourth recommendation if possible. Or I'm looking at, I know this is, I'm sort of going around here a little bit, but now I'm looking at Councillor Page. If Councillor Page is still thinking about adding a fourth point to that, I will leave it to you.
What was the fourth point, reminding councillor Page?
In regard to the replacement of trees, we have native trees surrounding the whole city. There's millions of them before mining came along, and it survives in droughts, and it's a nice tree. Look at any paintings, he paints the mulberry tree, all his paintings, and it's a tree that will survive, will do well in our city, and it puts a nice,
Madam Mayor, would it be wrong for me to remind Councillor Page?
Well, do you want to put in your motion, councillor?
Well, I think what it was Councillor Page was saying, we all agree that we need action on this as soon as possible. We cannot let this become a policy that is not acted on as quickly as we possibly can. We are aware of restrictions as far as staffing and costing and so on, but we have to start doing something about the replacement of trees and as soon as we possibly can.
Yes, Madam Mayor, the mulberry tree.
Thank you,
Thank you,
councillor.
Madam.
Thank you. So is there any, councillor?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to propose an addendum which councillor Adams may accept, which is that during this period of public allowed public comment, that we organise some sort of public presentation and discussion, because trees are important to people. It's very obvious at the moment. It's the dead trees that we've had spent a lot of time arguing another tree issue. So the trees are very important to many people. I think there are quite a few aspects to this policy that I wouldn't want to be a surprise to people when they come up with issues in the future. I think that in spite of what Councillor Page is recommending, I know the mulberry is one of the trees that are recommended, but maybe there are others. There's a list of very very appropriate trees that are suggested here, and I think it'll be interesting to see, public, what the public comments about those proposed trees for this. When we're talking about trees, just bearing in mind that we've just agreed to to put the CBD master plan on public display. One of the most significant aspects of that is greening of Argent Street and all of those cross streets. And I think we can't delay on that. And I know we've had quite a bit of discussion over the past.
Can I call it point of order, Madam Mayor? We have Councillor Adams that moved the motion, who spoke in for. Councillor Brown is not speaking again. She's asked for an addendum, and we've been going on as if it's the addendum was pretty clear. I'm sure Councillor Adams got it quite easily, and the councillor either accepts it or whatever. But that was important.
Oh, it's in the addendum.
Can I just check, go back to the other one? So if that public presentation being made of the draft presentations, not just a presentation? Okay. The other one, Councillor Adams, did you have that action be taken as soon as possible to remove the dead trees and then replace them with the mulga trees?
No, I didn't mention any trees. What I'm saying is that action needs to be taken as quickly as possible and that we don't delay by getting bogged down with policy. We need to act on the dead trees and replace them.
Okay, so the motion that is at the moment, and I'll go to Councillor, I've just got to get this motion right so far. Item 1, 2, and 3, 4 is that action be taken as soon as possible to remove dead trees and replace them with suitable tree species. That the public presentation be made of the draft tree management plan whilst it's on public discussion. Councillor Page, are you speaking against the motion?
Just confirming that Deputy Mayor was alluding to the fast tracking of the removal of the trees. I thought she meant briefing the other night. I said placing the trees.
Okay, we've got that on track now.
They will be fast tracked.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further debate?
Just a question, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Kennedy?
That last addendum sounded pretty close to the amendments that I've been moving about replacing dead trees, removing and replacing dead trees with a suitable tree. Saying that the notice of motion wasn't supported 4 or 5 months ago.
Thank you, Councillor. If there's no further debate, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. Councillor Nolan, you voted? Unanimous vote. Thank you, everyone. Item 7, Broken City Council report number 57/21, page 280, suspension of a portion of the Central Business District alcohol-free zone for the 2021 Broken Hill Festival. Do I have a mover for that? So moved by Councillor Nolan. Seconder, Councillor Cool. Oh, sorry, Councillor Gallagher. Councillor Nolan, do you want to speak to the motion?
It makes sense, Madam Mayor. It's been done before. Support. Just be on it.
Okay, thank you. No speakers against? No speakers against. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous vote. Thank you, councillors. We move to item 8. I can see Councillor Adams has got a finger ready to go. Report number 58/21, page 284, the National Heritage Values Study. Councillor Adams.
Yes, this is a big study.
You're moving it right. Just need a second.
Oh, sorry.
Seconded by Councillor Brown. Councillor Adams.
This is a very big study that was prepared by the former Heritage Advisor, and I started to read it, and obviously, and it is because it's something that really is a reference. It's a reference to the way we go forward in looking at our heritage values and how we are going to deal with looking after whatever comes our way as mining finishes and so on. it's a really, once you get into it, it is a really interesting study to read. You see where he talks about places that should be on our heritage list and that aren't, and he queries about some that are on the shouldn't be. And when you read what he's saying, a lot of it makes sense. There's a couple of things that I would just ask Edgar and Dolan just to bring up. One is there is a section on trees and the importance of trees. So that's what we're considering what we've been talking about tonight. The other one I would draw the attention for councillors is something that's coming up as a councillor query. I query from the last meeting about the 1990 railway station, the New South Wales railway station, and he has in this report telling us how important that station is. So that is something that as some of the community are really concerned about. Maybe we should be looking at what Paul Davis is saying about that and seeing what we can do.
Thank you, councillor. Speakers against? No speakers against? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Nolan, against? Oh, it's a unanimous vote. Thank you very much. Item 9, Broken City Council Report number 59/21, dated April 17th, 2021. Management of Construction Certificates, page 504. Do I have a mover for that? Moved by Councillor Clark. Seconder.
Second.
Sorry, was that Councillor Nolan? Thank you, Councillor Nolan.
Move an amendment, Madam
What's your amendment,
Mayor.
Councillor?
That the report we received, and that two, that council like to increase the budget to allow the general manager to increase the salary package so that he's able to employ a full-time second building surveyor.
Mr. General Manager, are we able to increase the salary package?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, we certainly can. We'll just need to do a budget adjustment in the Q3 review for employee salary and wages, and whether there'd be any other offsets in the operational budget to accommodate it.
Sorry, just wait a second. Councillor Betty is seconding the amendment. So Councillor Adams.
I'm just querying the availability of the people that we're trying to get. We seem to be having trouble getting some.
Okay, we'll take those questions on that. So I'm going to get Councillor Kennedy to speak to his amendment first.
I move this amendment because the general manager, the new general manager, must be given the opportunity and resources to give him the best opportunity to employ that second building surveyor. Quite obvious from the report, we're doing all we can to try and get under control those construction certificates that are required, and it's very obvious. And I've spoken to not only some local people, but some people from other places in the state that are having similar troubles. And the only way to do that, to fix that, is to offer something beyond, is to entice them out to the far west at the moment. There is a shortage. They don't want to leave where they are or on the coast or whatever. We must give the general manager the resources is required to try and attract one of those building or whatever's required from those building surveyors out here, because it's not just a Broken Hill issue, it's an issue across the state, and the only way that any council at the moment is able to address that is to give the resources that the general managers require to get those that expertise, because if we don't have that expertise, we will be spending many thousands of dollars trying to get contractors a year, which are difficult to get, and the general manager would confirm this. Those contractors are even hard to get out here, and they can virtually charge whatever they like, because they're not just wanted in Broken Hill, they're wanted all over the state to try and take care of backlogs. So, yeah, that's all I need to say.
Thank you. I'm just going to go to Councillor Adams after the question first. You have a question that you want to ask?
Look, I think Councillor Kennedy sort of covered it anyway. We are aware that it's very difficult to get anyone out, and so that's my question's been answered. Through Councillor. Kim,
Sorry, councillor. Look at the video. Councillor Brown did have a hand up. You're speaking.
Just a question, Madam Mayor. I'm just wondering if the general manager already has the flexibility to be able to do that. You know, what's offered, the salary package that's offered to, you know, these fairly senior professional people is, you know, hard and fast, or whether there is some flexibility to adjust it according to, you know, to get someone.
Mr. General Manager.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. You've certainly got flexibility to adjust it. I guess at the moment we are operating at maximum capacity on our salary wages because we set them at the start of the year based on what we are offering at the time. We have used a lot of the salary and wages for contractors, so to increase any salaries at the moment above what we're already offering would require a budget adjustment.
Councillor Fay, did you have a question?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to ask a question of Councillor McCall through you. When I was talking to you the other night at the briefing, did you say that we're about to put on a cadetship or a traineeship in regard to this issue?
Councillor McCool.
Through the Mayor. No, what I said was I pointed to the General Manager's report where they're considering in the operational budget the reintroduction of a cadet building surveyor, and that was something that definitely Council General Manager should look at in all seriousness. So I think growing our own, training our own staff, and training our own people who live here to get these qualifications and these skills, I think should be a paramount of importance to council, indeed any other organisation in Broken Hill. And they should also look at possible skill sharing across the city or different organisations. But I do have a question.
Are you happy with that, councillor? Okay, question.
Question is, if there is an increase in a package for the second position, does that mean an automatic increase for the current position?
Mr. General Manager.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. No, it doesn't. We're looking for an A1, A2 certified at the moment. Our current position is A3. And obviously, you know, we'd work through this as an operational, as a management team to make sure that there's the wage comparability across the organisation.
I have a question, Madam Mayor, if you don't mind, if I could ask the General Manager. Looking at that point about the reintroduction of a cadet building surveyor, which I think is a fabulous idea because we should be training our own people. We should be getting stuck into that. I'm just wondering, is the cadet building surveyor budgeted for already? Or would the proposed increase in the budget for the building surveyor take away from that position?
Mr. General Manager.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. There's no current budget for the building surveyor cadet in this year's budget. We're building into next year's budget. And as suggested, we wouldn't want to employ a cadet before we do recruit to that second position because we need our current building surveyor to be out doing construction certificates 100% of the time without training somebody. So when we do have that extra capacity, then we can certainly train and bring on a cadet, which is why it's being built into next year's budget.
Thank you for that. Can I ask you then, how are we going at the moment? I know that I take Councillor Kennedy's point that this scarcity of these trained surveyors is statewide. Everybody wants one, and we certainly have struggled with those building certificates. Has that situation improved at all?
Mr. General Manager.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. It has improved. We were able to obtain a contractor for a short period of time. We're obviously always trying to secure more resources. We've reduced down from 62 building certificates at the beginning of this week down to 45 once we write up all the reports. So we are completing more construction certificates than what we are getting in. We had a delay time of around 7 months at the peak of it during February. We're down to a 4-month waiting period at the moment, so we are getting the top of it. Just got to make sure that we can keep getting the resources.
And the reason I asked that question was to see if there was an urgency to take up Councillor Kennedy's suggestion of increasing the advertised payment for a surveyor to lure them here, an extra surveyor, or are we coping at the moment?
Mr. General Manager.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Certainly this is, we're not coping at the moment because ideally we want to be able to recruit our own staff members rather than using contracts, and at the moment we're not getting any bites.
Okay,
And thank you. Is there any debate? No debate. Okay,
the Councillor Kennedy, was that an amendment or was it an addendum?
It was an amendment.
Okay, and does it take away from the rest of the?
No.
All right, separate.
No.
So would it be added to whatever was passed?
So it is that the report be received, and that council votes to increase the budget to allow the general manager to increase the salary package in order to employ a second full-time building surveyor. It adds to it. Okay, we understand where we're at. Okay, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Councillor McCool, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Allgate, Councillor Adams, Mayor Shirley, Councillor Gallagher, Councillor Nolan. Against? Councillor Page. Thank you, councillors. Declared it carried. It now becomes the motion. Councillor Clark, you were the original mover of the motion. If you want to write a reply.
No, Madam Mayor, I think, I think that we all want to see these construction certificates completed as soon as possible. We do need to have trained professionals on our staff so that they can undertake the training of others, which I think is most important.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor McCool, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Allgate, Councillor Adams, Mayor Shirley, Councillor Gallagher, Councillor Nolan. Against? Councillor Page. Declare the motion carried. I'm pleased to say, councillors, that next month we should have our new sound system. Not sure when the air conditioning is going to be. Yeah, will be. Better be. Although we haven't had a committee to look at that. So, item 10, Broken Hill City Council report number 61/21, dated April 16, 2021. The minutes of the local traffic committee held on the 6th of April. This is page 506. Councillor Brown, you're moving that way. Seconder, Councillor Adams. Councillor Brown, do you want to speak to the motion?
There's just a couple of things. It is spelled out in the report, but there was quite a bit of discussion at the last meeting about the drop-off zone, but the reason why the committee decided not to do anything about that is that as it currently is, it is a drop-off zone. It's just you can't park there, but you can stay there for 2 minutes and drop someone off. So there's no need to change that at all.
So we wouldn't get a ticket if we were dropping someone off?
No,
okay.
no. So if you drop someone off there, you don't get a ticket. It's perfectly legal. So that if you get a ticket, presumably you're doing something other than dropping someone off.
Well, thank you, Councillor. Can you speak against?
No, I'm moving amendment.
What's your amendment?
1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, and at 4, council requested request that the traffic committee reconsider the decision to do nothing and to put a loading zone or drop-off zone there so that people at the cinema can get out.
Seconded, Councillor Allgate.
Seconded.
Okay, Councillor Kennedy, do you want to speak to your amendment?
Yes, I do. I had Aston Renning immediately after that. I'll just briefly read out. We refer to the above. This is from this. We have finally received a response to a request that the signs parking restrictions in front of the cinema should be changed. Copy attached. It looks like the local traffic committee have decided they would not recommend any alteration to the parking restrictions in front of the cinema. As the letter indicates, there are some situations when you can park there, but they seem to be extremely limited and probably not no use to you or your father. I've spoken to Aston, and Aston come in and is very upset, especially after we got 960 odd signatures from the community in a petition to do something about this. An older gentleman, just the other day, 92 or 93, went in, escorted his wife in to the cinema, went out front, had a ticket. So to suggest that if you're doing something wrong, you're not going to get a ticket is almost laughable. We know that John Wren did get a ticket. We know that many people have got tickets. Aston Wren confirmed as a regular event to have tickets out front of the local cinema. Maybe the traffic officer doesn't understand that, yeah, you are allowed 2 minutes, as someone parked in front of a curb before, in front of a driveway also has 2 minutes. You try and argue that with a so-called parking officer in Seco would draw that line without council intervention. It does not happen. The council and the traffic committee, by doing nothing in this situation, has let the community down, let the patrons of the cinema down, and let down an icon of the city in John Wren. They've also let down a business run by Aston Wren. That if councillors think that that is an acceptable outcome and it's good and it's fine, they obviously haven't spoken to the people involved, because if you speak to the people involved, you'll find that it doesn't address the issues. 2 minutes, drop someone off, they can't even walk, say John Wren in. You better get out, John, because if I go any further than 3 metres from the car, we get a ticket. Come on. Let's face it, John Wren and plenty of people need help up to the door and maybe inside. To suggest that this is good enough is disgraceful, especially after council got 960 signatures asking for it to be changed. And the council do nothing about that, shame on this council.
Thank you, councillors. Any speakers against? No speakers against. I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Councillor Cool, Councillor Clark, Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Allgate, Councillor Page, Councillor Adams, Mayor Shirley, Councillor Gallagher, Councillor Nolan, and all those against, Councillor Brown. Thank you, councillors. The amendment now becomes a motion. Is there, Councillor Brown, do you want to write a reply?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'm not really clear what the traffic committee can do in this instance, because it won't be a drop-off zone. It is a drop-off zone now. That's what the petition asked for. So it is a drop-off zone. So they can't make it a drop-off zone. I'm just unclear what action you want me as the council representative to take back to the committee.
5 minute
The
parking.
signage is an issue. Can they change the signage? Sorry, it's a right reply. So
5 minute parking, Madam Mayor, is what I meant. It's at the high street.
5 minute parking has never been wasn't part of what was originally sent to the traffic committee. It was sent to the drop-off zone, which is what it is. A 5 minute parking is something completely new.
So perhaps
A loading zone would not allow people to be dropped off at all. A loading zone would make access less accessible, because you can't park and drop off people in a loading zone, as I understand it, and you don't. That's not a good spot for a loading zone anyway.
Okay, councillor, we'll put with that motion. I understand it would be, can you do a sign change to drop off instead of non-standing, whatever it is at the moment?
Madam Mayor, if I may, a drop off means you can't leave your car. You have to stop. You have to. You can only stay at the curb for 2 minutes. That's literally what a drop off is. It doesn't allow you to get up and
Okay.
escort someone inside. But that wasn't what was originally, it wasn't asked for.
In
The
the
5
petition.
minute. No, yes, it was asked for, they asked for a drop-off zone.
Okay.
Question, Madam Mayor. We still allowed to ask questions before it's put.
Oh, no, technically after the
Well, how
library.
do I know I actually don't know what we're voting on here.
Well, it's your amendment, so. if you
Well,
can-
that's why I'm asking the question, to make sure that what I've moved is exactly what I intended, which is for people to be able to, and you can call it whatever you like, the intention of my motion, and I'm making sure that the intention of my motion is what it is that people are allowed to park there, physically leave the car, enter the building, and come back for a short period of time. If that means it's a 5-minute parking, load, off road, whatever, I don't know what it's called, I'm not on the traffic committee, but I want to make sure that it's well understood what my amendment was that you are able to leave your car more than 3 metres, go, and you would have known by my argument, to be able to go into the cinema without getting fined.
So councillor, your amendment was that council requested the traffic committee reconsider the decision regarding the Silver Cinema and install a zone for 5-minute parking. That was your amendment with the rest of it. Councillor, we asked Councillor Brown to take to the traffic committee at the last meeting, or meeting before, the petition, which didn't request that. The petition requested, if you just read, a drop-off zone. So you've changed this, it's been accepted as an amendment, we've gone to debate.
Yeah, no, I was just making sure exactly what was, that's
Well, I'm
why.
glad you're clear now what you moved, because I was a bit concerned that you didn't.
No, because there was talking about loading zones and no good and all that. I wanted to make sure we knew exactly.
Well, you know what, yes, thank you. So this is what the council is going to ask. Councillor Page.
Madam Mayor, through you, I think it would be very appropriate to ask Councillor Gallagher whether we can come up with an outcome which everyone here would love to achieve. So,
Well, I'd love to do that, but Councillor Kennedy's got the amendment.
yeah, we're not getting the answer here tonight. So,
Well, no, the amendment is to refer it back
right,
to the traffic
okay,
committee.
I'll put a request.
Okay, well, that's the amendment, you've got to deal with what's in front of us. And I'm looking at Councillor Gallagher, and that's the amendment. So we're dealing with that. Councillor Brown's, who's long-term serving on the traffic committee, will take council's amendment back. Okay, I'm going to put the amendment, the motion, all those in favour. Unanimous vote. Thank you, councillors. We'll move now to item 11, Broken Hill City Council report number 62/21, dated April 15, 2021. Minutes of the Broken Hill Red Reference Group meeting held 27th February 2020. Page 529, Councillor Brown, you moving that way?
Yes.
Seconded, Councillor Clark. Councillor Brown?
Yeah, obviously, these minutes are referred to a meeting over 12 months ago, and that's just because due to COVID and also because of changes within council, no meeting was held till a few weeks ago, so they're really, it's a bit obsolete anyway.
Okay.
Can I ask a question through the chair, perhaps, so Councillor Brown, if you can answer it or you can find out? I've had a couple of concerns. People come that at the moment, when measuring lead, both in blood and soil, they're only measuring the insoluble amounts of lead as opposed to the soluble as well. So that gives a wrong reading. So they're not measuring the 2.5 microns. They're only measuring the 10 microns, which is doesn't go through your skin, that sort of stuff. So could, if Councillor Brown can answer it, is it true that they're only measuring, they're no longer measuring the insoluble and soluble lead? Soluble lead being lead oxide, insoluble being the sulphate.
I'm not aware of any change in the way that the blood lead levels are measured, or the lead. I know that the equipment they've got, which is called an XRF state of the art. And it's an instantaneous reading. I don't think there's a question of solubility or anything like that. And the blood, the testing that's done on children up to 5. To be honest, I can't answer the technical. I don't believe there's been any change. I don't believe there certainly hasn't been any discussion. Well, it wouldn't come up at the reference group, but on the steering committee that protocols have been changed. If anything, what's happened over the years is that the requirements have become more rigorous. People are be aware that the level of concern for blood lead levels has halved over the last 18 months or so, from 10 microns to 5. So, always the efforts are directed towards, reducing the lead in the environment and, keeping a very close eye on all the lead levels in the blood of all children. We can get, every child tested. That's the aim of it. But I'll certainly find out the answer to that question.
Just to go on further, Madam Mayor. So I have seen some of the data, and I will prepare something for Councillor Brown. So with the machine that Councillor Brown, and if she could find this out as well, because it's come from a concern. The machine is chip orientated. It gives a instant measurement, but in South Australia, they're measuring for soluble and insoluble. So depending on how your chip reads, will determine how it's coming out. They're saying at the moment that councils are in breaking all, they're only checking soluble. So I don't know if this is true.
Council doesn't do the testing.
No,
Yeah.
but the lead reference group, if Councillor Brown could find out a bit about that, if you get the opportunity. Yeah.
Thank you, councillors. There's no further debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Declare it carried unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Moving to item 12, report number 50/21. Action list moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Clark. Debate, Councillor Adams? No debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried unanimous. Thank you. Move to committee reports for which there is nil. Move to questions taken on notice from previous council meeting. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Cool. Councillor Adams, do you want to speak to the motion?
I'll just remind everyone of the 1919 railway station.
Thank you. Is there no debate? No debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Declare it carried unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item will go to supplementary agenda. Item number, Brecon City Council Report 64/21, the draft delivery program for 2021-2022, incorporating the operational plan, inclusive of the statement of revenue policy and draft schedule of fees and charges. Page 3.
Madam Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Nolan. Second. I just need to get a second, Councillor. Seconded by Councillor Adams. Okay, Councillor Nolan.
I'm wishing to move as written, except with the addition of another dot point, which with your indulgence I'll read just now. And then if the mover agrees with it, I guess we can progress.
You are the mover. You are the mover,
The
Councillor.
second, it's been a long night. Okay, I'll read. So, after serial 1, the first dot point, add an additional dot point which says that the draft schedule of fees and charges, and I'll read it slowly. Okay, the draft schedule of fees and charges for the aquatic centre be adjusted in line with council resolution of June 2018, minute number 45843, which states that increases be no more than CPI per line item from this year henceforth. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Adams, are you still happy to second the motion? Yeah. Okay, thank you. We have seconded. Councillor Nolan, do you want to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, quite briefly. When council was running the pool, it was $2 entry. Now it's proposed to be $5 entry. That seems like quite a small difference, but it does in fact make a 150% increase over those years. Now, after the first few years and when various charges and fees have gone up somewhat, the YMCA had time to make, those sort of commercial adjustments. We got to a stage where it should be pretty right by now, and I moved that amendment, or that motion, I should say, back in June, and it was seconded by Councillor Maureen Clark, with a view to the fact that the pool is important to so many people in Broken Hill, needs to be affordable, and the fact that a large proportion of people using it, especially for the hydro, we're going there quite a lot, and yet we're living on benefits, basically, government benefits. So we had to keep rein on the charges and keep them reasonable and realistic, so that the pool will be best used and best serve all patrons. So I think that kind of covers it, and hence that we keep an eye on it so it doesn't get out of hand. Thank you.
Not to forgetting that we've got the draft deliverable program, the operational plan, and statement of revenue and other things. Thank you, councillor. Is there speakers?
I have a question, Madam Mayor. Council has stopped taking the voucher for anything over a 64 trailer. So now if you've got a 75 trailer, you can't use your voucher, you have to pay for it. Is this fair?
Mr. General Manager.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'll have to take that notice and come back, sorry.
I just thought this might be the appropriate place to put an amendment to the users and charges, because at the moment those vouchers don't work for anything over a 64. I don't know if everyone remembers that initially it was for 64 trailers and utes. So now they're implementing the fact that it says 64 as opposed to 75, 85. Even though the intent of the original motion was for property owners that aren't commercially operating are able to dump 4 or 5 times a year without having to pay. People are now having to pay for 75s. And is this the place that we need to move an amendment to the charges?
Mr. General Manager.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, certainly councillors can move an amendment. I've gone out of my head at the moment. I thought we were taking up the 7x5s because that was sort of so if councillors want to make an amendment, it's certainly up to them.
Councillor, we're happy to incorporate it with, ask Councillor Nolan if he'll incorporate that into his motion. Councillor Adams.
Well, I was just going to say, could we make sure that that's the case before we do any changes? Investigate it and get the general manager to come back to us on that one.
Councillor, the general manager is looking at that, but in the meantime, it won't hurt if that's not the case, if we incorporate it into the.
And so I have to use that goes with Councillor Nolan and he's happy, but I have.
Councillor Nolan, you happy with that?
Have one at number 3 that I don't think that Councillor Nolan will accept, so I'll probably.
Okay, just wait till we get your other one in, just in case you lose.
So 1, 2 and 4
Wait on a
is,
minute, Lisa's still getting
Oh,
your,
right, okay, sorry.
I'm just reading the very fine print, Madam Mayor, as it's coming up on my screen.
okay, we're just going to have an amendment by councillor Kennedy.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Right, Lisa? Yeah. So the recommendations 1, 2 and 4 as written, but at number 3, the rating model, and I assume this, refers to the options return to valuation 16, blank, yeah. So, it'd be replaced with number 2, but it also include that anything above the 5% average increase for the non-industrial commercial rates be offset by mine rates.
Councillor Kennedy, do you have a seconder, councillor Fred?
Second.
Councillor Kennedy, will speak to your amendment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The reason I moved that is because people, I'm sure I'm not the only council that realises the impact that that increase had. I'm also so sure that most councillors would realise that businesses as a whole could not absorb another huge rate increase, even though they had a rate reduction last year. People get used to what they have to pay. We need to, as a council, remember that we reduced mine rates regularly over many, many years, to the point where there was about $1.5 million transferred from mine rates to residential and commercial rates. That did have an impact. With the mines doing as well as they have and businesses doing as poorly as they have, the increase in mine rates would not be significant percentage-wise, but it would enable council to ensure that we start to get the return on mine rates without increasing industrial or business rates by too many. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any speakers against? No speakers against. I'll put councillor Kennedy's amendment. All those in favour? Councillor Kennedy, councillor Allgate, councillor Page. All those against? Councillor McCool, councillor Brown, councillor Clark, councillor Adams, councillor Gallagher, councillor Nolan, councillor Nolan, yes, and Mayor Shirley. The amendment's lost. We go back to the original motion of councillor Nolan.
Just a point of clarification, Madam Mayor.
Yes, councillor.
The line there that's referencing 795 trailer, is that still in it?
Yes, it's in the current motion, your motion. It was, you accepted it in the, when councillor Kennedy asked, then you moved an amendment. So the draft schedule, fees and charges for the waste facility be amended to include a 7x5 trailer in the voucher scheme.
I don't have a problem with that, Madam Mayor. Thank
Well,
you.
that's good because you accepted it. Really pleased about that, councillor. Okay, we are in debate for this motion. If there's no speakers against, I'll put the motion. All those in favour: Councillor Cool, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark, Councillor Adams, Councillor Gallagher, Councillor Nolan, Mayor Shirley. Against: Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Allgate and Councillor Page. Thank you, councillors. We'll move to item 2, Broken City Council report number 65/21, dated April 21st, 2021, the draft long-term financial plan. Do I have a mover for that?
I'll be ready, Madam Mayor.
Moved by councillor Nolan. Seconder, councillor Brown. Thank you. Councillor Nolan, do you want to speak to the motion?
Only briefly, Madam Mayor, say that sooner or later we've got to break even, and tough choices do have to be made. I think it's as indicated in this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Speakers against? No speakers against, no amendments? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? I declare that passed unanimous. Thank you. Item 3, Broken City Council report number 60/21. I'll ask Councillor Clark to leave the building. Dated April 8th, 2021. Development application 155/2020. 4 new dwellings, 480 Cumming Street, page 153. I have a mover for that.
I'll move that the Broken City Council report be received. And at number 2, a site inspection be organised of the proposed development application.
Second.
So moved by Councillor Kennedy, second by Councillor Aldgate. Any debate?
Just before I speak in favour of the motion I'll move, I just have a quick question. I have spoken to a few of the people involved in objecting to the development application. It says in here neighbours were notified, 33 letters were sent. And if we can find out this is for sure, because the people involved said there was many people that didn't receive letters. I don't know if there's a mix up in mail or whatever, but many in the area didn't receive letters. People across the road, people around the corner. So it says 33 letters there, so I assume that it was a good group of people, but in fact many people haven't got it, and these people are doing that. But, I've spoken to some people and they didn't receive letters, and so we can find that out. But I'll go on with and that might be another reason.
Do you want me to get the General Manager to comment?
Oh yes, if
Mr. General Manager.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. We can, we'll certainly give you a list of the properties that the letters went to, but their letterbox drops for all development applications, so, yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the reason I move this is because it is something that people have taken the time to come in and about. And in the past, councillors have gone down and had site inspections, particularly when it becomes controversial as it has. That will give us an opportunity to speak to the writer of the report, so he can show us visually what some of those concerns are, and give the opportunity for the neighbours to actually point out their concerns. So as a council, we get the opportunity. I'm sure the mayor and deputy mayor, they have worked really quite well when council has been able to go down there and visualise it, as well as neighbours, as well as the proponents and the opponents and the council officer. So I hope councillors support it. I think that it gives everyone the best opportunity.
Thank you. Councillor, sorry, I think Councillor Adams was, I just want to check with Councillor Adams, because she was trying to get to the mic earlier.
No, well, I just make a comment that I agree with Councillor Kennedy. It's a shame that the site we keep talking all the time about that that's what we should do, and somehow it slips by and we don't get it done. So very definitely on that point, I agree with Councillor Kennedy.
Councillor Brown.
Yeah, it's just a simple question, Madam Mayor. I assume Councillor Kennedy intends that this report report will come back to the next meeting of council.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll put that.
And in fact, we could look at an extraordinary meeting. I'm sure that the community members don't ever want to sit through one of these council meetings again. So we could look at the timing around that and try and resolve it fairly quickly for everyone. And I'll talk to the General Manager, and we need to put it in place when DA applications, when there is controversy, that we do this site inspection. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous vote. Thank you very much. And Mr. General Manager, if you can organise that quite quickly for everyone. Can we ask Councillor Brown, Clark to come back in?
Madam Mayor, can I make a comment? Have we had a legal opinion on this issue?
It's all in the paper, I think.
I know it's in there, that's why I asked you the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
The public need to know, have we had a legal opinion on it?
General Manager.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yes, as detailed in the report, where council's current position lies, legal opinion supports that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Clark, welcome back. It's not a deferment motion that the site inspection be organised for the proposed development site and that a report be presented to the May council meeting. But we may actually look at putting that in as an extraordinary meeting and make a decision. Okay, thank you everyone for your patience. Thank you everyone. We promise you if there is an ordinary meeting in May, I'll ask the General Manager to put up the beginning of the paper. He's failed his task, so thank you for your patience tonight. We'll move to item 14, questions for next meeting arising from items on the agenda. We've been captured during the meeting. I know I've seen this, the only ones in that we can capture. Are there any other questions that only relate to the items on this agenda? If there's not, we'll go into confidential. Call for motions to go into confidential to closed session. Moved by Councillor Brown, second by Councillor Adams. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Nolan, you're voting. Thank you. Declare carried unanimous. We'll go into closed session. Thank you. No, I can't see it all the time, Councillor. We'll turn off the camera. Hopefully we won't be too long to our venue.